Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick.
And I'm Chelsea Lagan, aka the Blue Kazoo.
And on today's podcast, we will be having a little eulogy for our dear and beloved friend, Tristan Fear.
And then Connor and Michael Cox will be discussing the Jamaican War. Fuck's sake.
I'm keeping that in.
No! And then Connor and Michael Cox will be discussing the Magenta War.
Indeed. And, of course, we have a new host with us today.
Hello. It is
Indeed. Indeed. You are our new permanent host.
Yes, I am. I am taking over, taking the very heavy reins and bestowing them upon myself. So Hopefully I do good and people enjoy it.
Well, this isn't the first time we've recorded a podcast together.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
No. We did a podcast. It's going to sound very, well, not for yourself, but for me. We co-hosted the Overton podcast on TT Productions, celebrating the 2-year anniversary of TT Productions, a channel of which I don't run. I was there.
We were there, so we were like, oh, let's do it.
Yeah, that was in 2023 when Overton Audios and TT sort of joined forces on the SoundCloud, and we did a joint podcast. Abby Louise wanted to try a podcast out to see if it could work in the same manner that we do it here. Ultimately, no. We did 8 episodes, and Abby sort of felt it wasn't the same as what she was doing in other ways. So yeah, but we record that together in person.
Yeah, it was like we recorded that literally side by side, sharing
Indeed.
a microphone.
That was only 3 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting what year it actually is because I'm like...
It was it was August 2023 when we recorded that, and we're in February 2026 as of recording.
Well, here we go. It's a good reunion.
Indeed.
New year, new peoples, good times.
Indeed. And so we've got this. So obviously, to give some context, but before we give more context as to who you are, we must first thank our Patreons from Overton Audios. Many thanks to Daniel Wild, Anya Coyle, Delta FX, and Chelsea Lagan.
Who's that? Ooh.
That is our first bit of context. You are you're a Patreon woman.
I am indeed. I have to support the creativity, support Overton
Indeed.
Audio.
But yes, so you have been a part of Overton Audios since 2017. And obviously we're in our 10th year at the moment, so 9 years.
Yeah, next year will be the big 10 for me. And me and you have always said that we'll go for a very nice meal whenever it comes to it.
A very good Blue Kazoo meal.
Indeed.
And your first episode, well, actually, technically, your first full audio drama where you were a main character, a main role, was in November 2017. But you did record for something in April or May 2017, which was your one line for The Gathering. Yeah.
Iconic.
Indeed. It was just that one line. And I'd say we'd worked together on it. It was mainly you and Daniel Patton, the previous host of the podcast. He had been making a film called Downloaded, of which we were setting up that film with the previous cast who'd been in the first one, and one of them had suggested you. And we were like, who is this stranger?
And then that's how everything began. It is.
And you, in comparison, was such a baby.
I was. I didn't even have, my blue hair that I've been sporting for quite a while.
How long have you had the blue hair now?
Oh jeez.
2022?
No, I've been blue before.
Well, no, because
no, because it was a dip dye situation. So it was the ends of my hair. I think I must have been about maybe 19, 18.
Well, this
19?
is the thing. When we filmed, because we obviously filmed Waterside together,
Mm-hmm.
and when we filmed Waterside, you weren't blue yet, but the ends of your hair were like a red crimson.
Yeah, I think I had a
It was
haircut.
after that, I think. It was after
Well,
that.
it was before that actually, because
Oh,
my granny was a bit of a she didn't like the blue hair, and she was like, "Oh, you need to get a healthy cut. Your hair is just, it's like all split ends and whatever." And I thought, you know what,
yeah.
I'll do it. So I got it cut like to my shoulders. Hated it. But there was a little tiny bit of blue in the end, so I thought, oh well, let's put some red in and see what happens. I quite liked it, but obviously had to go back to the blue.
Yes, the blue kazoo lives
The blue
on.
kazoo, indeed. The blue kazoo was born from blue manic panic hair dye.
I think the reason why I got the dates wrong is because whenever we were doing Crimson Hunter, I was colouring your hair in the cover arts.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. We've sort of, I'll tell you about it later, but like we've come up with an in-universe reason now as to why whenever we do the Julia Bresson live action stuff, why she's got blue hair. There's an in-universe reason there. But it will be it's part of the Fractured Timeline finale that we filmed for.
I know. Shh.
Yes, many secrets.
Many secrets indeed.
Yes, and I'm trying to think about other bits of context for yourself, because obviously the second half of last year we had a lot of guest hosts.
Mm-hmm.
I went through lots and lots of names, and some of them were viable but just didn't have the time. Some of which just weren't free, or some of them just sadly we didn't gel properly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It got to a point where I was thinking to myself, going like, you need to have have an energy that matches.
Yeah.
And me and Dan are have a kind of grumpy old man kind of vibe about us. But you you have the vibe of I don't know how this is going to be taken when I say it, but it feels like when I'm like, it kind of gives off the vibe that I'm an old man talking, and you're like, yeah, it's all right. You can go back to sleep. And I'm like, but I want to talk about all these audios I've been making.
It's okay. We all visualize you sitting in an armchair, having a nice wee cup of tea, sitting by the fire. It's all good.
Watching Last of the Summer Wine or something.
And that's it. That's exactly
I
it.
do love that show, admittedly. Well, I was talking with one of my work colleagues the other day about it. I found out it's still on TV.
Is it?
Well, the series did end, but they have 3 episodes of it every weekday on what he's a bit of an older gentleman himself, so he said channel 20, but I think it's called You and Drama.
Oh, right, okay.
And I went, is it? And he got out of his the back of his chair a TV guide. I thought, oh my god, I love TV guides. I thought they stopped making them. He goes, no, they don't make them individually. They come with newspapers now. And he's an avid reader of the Daily Mail, so they, whenever he gets the Daily Mail on a Saturday, they give him this.
Oh, right.
And I do miss a good TV guide. I remember as a kid when you'd look at it and you'd have to read down it and everything, and I'm like, nowadays it's obviously you can go on iPlayer. He hates iPlayer.
When's Doctor Who on an evening? Let me have a look.
Well, yeah, but I want that. I want that again. But the problem is I don't watch enough domestic kind of television anymore. Like I always watch on iPlayer now, or the cable on my well, you know this because you've seen it in my flat. Like the TV cable for me to be able to get signal is broken, and I've been and it means when I plug in the TV to the satellite, it's a glitchy signal, and we don't know if it's the fuse in the actual wall or if it's the satellite. But nobody else in the building I live in has commented. Oh. Or maybe it's just too many people tuning in. I don't know what it is, but as a result, I've not been able to use my TV as a TV
Aye, but that's the thing
in
as
years.
well. I think it's like the handiness of having, iPlayer and all that stuff.
Oh,
It's just, especially with new TVs, it's kind of built into the system. So
yeah.
it's,
I
but
think
you do
it's a
have to miss
tradition,
like you do have to miss, putting on the Skybox or the Digibox or whatever you put on and having a wee scroll through saying, "Oh, this is on later, I'll watch this," or going through TV guides and whatever. It's just very uncommon now. Very
Yeah,
uncommon.
because this is the thing for me. It's I think it's probably a link to childhood and also tradition that I had as a kid.
It's pure nostalgia.
Because
No.
so much has changed, and I'm always a bit of a I mean, I'm a very nostalgic person,
Mhm.
so I'm always like I always love a little bit of familiarity. It kind of I remember it's like Last of the Summer Wine always makes me think of me sat around my nan and granddad's in my granddad's armchair watching it, and I always remember
Mhm.
like there's the final laughter track and then that theme coming on. Even just thinking about it now brings back a lot of childhood nostalgia.
Yeah, it's like, see, when my granddad and everything, it's like there's always the Carry On films on a Sunday. So
Yeah,
every single Sunday, I would wake up and hear the Carry On going on because he doesn't have like a Fire Stick or anything like that. So it's still like old school, and he still has like a pure box TV in his kitchen. So
yeah,
it's sometimes whenever I get reminiscent and nostalgic, I put my fingers up to the TV just to feel that little static,
yeah. Yeah,
and it's
well,
like,
that's the other thing as well is that I have been considering dialing back how much I'm on social media.
mm,
Like, this is too much now, and most of it is a bit of a cesspool for me now.
like, like, see, like there, like people are on threads and everything. I couldn't be bothered with another social media
I
platform.
got Threads. Threads was meant to be a replacement for Twitter when Elon
Aye.
Musk bought it, but then when Donald Trump won the election, God, it wasn't even last year anymore. At the end of 2024,
Mm,
um, everyone left Twitter and went to Blue Sky instead. So I think some people left Threads, and there are some people who are exclusively on Threads. And
mhm.
I spoke to a couple of people who when they left Twitter and went to Blue Sky, and they actually stayed there
Aye.
because we know a couple of people who were so anti Twitter but have ended up
Mhm.
back there anyway. They actually I've spoken to them about it, and because I used to look at Blue Sky quite a bit, and then I kind of ended up just gravitating back to Twitter, which annoys me because I don't actually like Twitter. But I
Mhm.
suppose that's part of the social media bug at the moment. I feel that there
Yeah.
is a lot of people that it's all to do with that ban as well that the UK government are planning. God, we're getting very political here.
I
I
know.
was going to be
Not like
introducing you.
me. I
Yeah.
don't do politics.
But like this is
Here
the
we
thing.
are.
I think it's a case of as I'm getting older, I just want simplicity.
Yeah. Oh,
I just want
100%.
things to be simple so that the more complicated things that I have to do in my everyday life
Mhm.
are they can be focused on more rather than my phone going off every 3 seconds with a
Oh, I know.
notification.
No,
Yeah,
100%.
so there's all
Yes.
that. um, but nonetheless, so for context for everyone, we said at the beginning of the podcast that there was a eulogy in
Mhm.
this podcast. Since the last podcast I recorded was quite early on in December because of Christmas and everything, so I didn't have much of a chance to put something together. And then obviously we've
Mhm.
had the Magenta War, which we'll get into later. So this is technically the first podcast. Well, it actually is the first podcast of the year. So at the end of November, although some of us found out at the beginning of December, one of I think probably my oldest friend.
Mm.
Uh, Although I've had fallings out with others, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
My oldest current friend uh, passed away. I knew him for 16 years. I've done a couple of posts on I did one post on socials, and he had his memorial service at the beginning of February. But there were some people who got to speak because there was timing issues. So some people got to speak and some people didn't. So I tried to put together this little eulogy. We did a eulogy before on the podcast for Harry Gosling.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away in September 2023, and we got a few people in to record some thoughts about him. But you and I have recorded something for it.
Yeah.
For the one about Tristan. For context, I met Tristan beginning of just I think on his birthday, on his 14th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And we just did a load of filming for like the old supers back in the day. And he's appeared in one or two Overton Audios productions back in, like, they probably came out during COVID year, honestly. And he's also appeared in Waterside, which of course you've acted alongside him there, and that's where you met him, wasn't it? You met Tristan there.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
met
at
Tristan
Waterside.
then. Oh,
It was very much a shock for us, wasn't it?
it very much was. It was just so out of the blue. And
Yeah,
I
because
think, it was just with the shock of it. It didn't feel real,
yeah.
almost.
No, I agree, because I got contacted by Peter Adams a couple of days after. For those who might not recognise him, he plays the young Doctor on Overton Audios, Prism timeline thing. He contacted me, and the thing is, because Tristan's such a joker,
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was a sick joke.
Oh gosh.
I didn't like laugh and go ha ha ha. I just was like, no, you're not being serious, are you?
Mm-hmm.
And but Pete is someone who jokes about some things but knows when not to.
Yeah.
Tristan always kind of blurred that line a little bit, but
Definitely.
and of course after I got told, I believe I ended up I contacted a few other people I haven't spoken to in years, that when we knew Tristan as a larger group years ago, almost a decade ago. Then I think I called you, and you were at work at the time.
Yeah.
You
I
having to
was
stand out. You having to stand outside, weren't you, for something?
Yep.
Um,
I was just like, it was a very unexpected one because usually we do not talk at working hours. And then
yeah,
I was like, okay, if I got a call from you at a very peculiar time, I'd be like, okay, what's wrong or what's going on? As you know, it's definitely a serious thing. And honestly, I didn't believe you. I didn't believe you when
mm,
you told me.
yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I was in denial for a very long time, I think.
It didn't hit me until the service,
Yeah.
because he's like I've been able to. I talk about it in the eulogy, but I would go like months sometimes, maybe even up to a year, without
Mm-hmm.
seeing him sometimes or hearing from him. So it took a long time to really feel that gap,
Yeah.
because when I saw everyone, people I haven't seen in years or ever met but knew online, all in one place and all talking and being very emotional naturally, it made it kind of like, oh wow, okay, yeah, like my brain accepted that he died, but wasn't really feeling the weight of it yet.
Oh, I was completely the same because obviously I've just moved. I moved over on New Year's Day to England,
Mm. Oh,
but
do
where
you?
I moved over to, I could not make it for the service. But thankfully, there was a stream of it, a live stream, and
Yes.
so I got to watch it there. And I think it was the same for me. It was whenever I that's when it properly hit me. But
Yeah.
hearing everybody's like kind words and words about him and what it was like, it was just like that properly hit me moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, at least, I'm very glad that the people that could make it there got there and were there with the intentions of being there for each other, being there for him. And, it was just a very nice thing to see. And
Yeah.
even though
Absolutely.
I wasn't there, I was able to be there in some sort of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and it was a lovely service, wasn't it?
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and yeah. So, shall we have a little listen to everybody's eulogies?
Yes, we shall. Definitely.
I met Tristan on the 15th of May, 2009. He came down to my hometown where I was living. I was only 14 at the time. We were both 14 at the time. We made little episodes of what I make on Overton Audios at the moment, Supers. We made that, filmed a whole volume of 4 episodes in a day. That was so much fun. I filmed that with my friends, well, obviously Tristan, and another one of my very, very old friends called Osama Kiani. He had brought Tristan down for the day because Osama had visited mine before. He'd played the master in some of my old stuff when I made when I was a kid. I remember being stood in the train station waiting for them both to arrive on that day, and the first words that Tristan ever said to me, which was, "Oh my god, it's the Filming Mania 2." The Filming Mania 2 was one of my first ever YouTube channels. At this point, I was still using that channel before it got turned into Red Matter Productions. That's just how long ago it was. But we had so much energy on that day. We filmed so much, and it was incredible. I Tristan had this energy about him, just a spark, and he never lost that spark in life. He had his grumpier moments as we both got older, but he still had that amazing spark where you felt safe, felt so safe with him. Although, I've become a bit of a grumpy old soul, and in my age, he was always able to bring out the youthfulness in me because of how long we'd known one another. Tristan faced many trials and tribulations in life, so it was inspiring as well as amazing for him to have kept that brilliant spark that made him who he was. We had a very love-hate relationship, though. We had lots of silly arguments when we were teenagers, and a little bit into our early adulthood, 18 years old or so. But we started talking again in our early 20s, and we haven't had an argument since. But we realised that our friendship thrived off of a bit of distance as well. We were close, and that closeness never changed, but we didn't have to talk every day. We found ourselves getting we're the kind of people who maybe get a little bit suffocated by constant contact. I have people I talk to every day, but me and Tristan's dynamic was just different. We let our lives just continue, and when we were able to cross over, that was great opportunities to catch up. That didn't stop us missing each other, but nonetheless, we would always start talking again like no time had passed, and it was lovely. There were a couple of times so that we had almost crossed paths, that we would always miss each other by an hour or two. I remember I was at work on a building in the Croydon area, and he was living there at the time, and I remember looking out the window and I could see his flat, and I went, "Oh, are you in the area?" And he went, "No, I've just gone out into central London." So I was like, "Oh, for God's sake, I'm literally looking at your house. I haven't seen you in about a year." So it was all those wonderful little things, and little crossovers where we were almost there. you know. And then in 2022, he came and worked with me for a little bit. I work in construction, so he came and joined me on some construction sites, which was great. We got to spend so much time together. I think that's the most time that we've spent together since we started like having a good maintained friendship since our early 20s, and it was great. It was great. And then obviously he was in one of my biggest projects to date, Waterside. Well, we met up so frequently there. We shot that in 2019. In fact, we actually shot it across 2017 into 2019, which was lovely. It meant that for a couple of years or so, I was seeing him for a good period of time every year for filming, but also to catch up as friends. And he was always so personable with all the cast there as well. He became a great source of positivity for everybody who had a filming day. If there was ever a filming day with Tristan, people were happy. Because they knew they were going to have so much fun and be feelings. Well, you know, Tristan gave off that feeling of safety. But I also remember during filming of Waterside that he had so many collaborative ideas. In fact, one of the scenes that from Waterside season 4, I remember he suggested that we don't have it as a phone call. Because he then suddenly went, Connor, I don't think you've realised. The person I'm having a phone call with is here on the filming today, and you want to film my phone call bits for it, but he is right here. We could just block, and so they had this idea of blocking the scene. So instead of it being a phone call, they blocked it out where it was a bit more of a threatening conversation, because it is anyway. But like, it's one of my favourite scenes in the series as a result, and that was all him. It was great. But the very, very last time I saw Tristan was purely by chance in 2024. We were both on the same train going up to Birmingham New Street. We only got to chat for about 5 to 10 minutes, but it was still a lovely last meeting. I was asleep on the train, and I was travelling up to Birmingham with my dad, and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked up thinking it would be my dad or something like that, and it was Tristan. I hadn't seen him since 2022, since we did that work together at that point, so it'd been a couple of years. And we just chatted. He was travelling up with other people who had gone to the toilet. He'd walked past me, not seeing me, but on his way back from the toilet, he then saw me and went, hang on, that's Connor. So we got to chat. There was a nice photograph that my dad took with us both, and we said that we'd try and meet up soon, and, well, we weren't able to. I felt very guilty about that when I heard about when I was told that he'd passed. There was a lot of guilt that I thought, I'd got him in some things in audio dramas before, and also in other like projects like Waterside, but I always felt very guilty that I wasn't able to get him in other things, or we weren't able to align meeting up. But I also thought to myself, there's a kind of beauty in the fact that we always missed one another, like we always crossed over one another, but that final meeting was ironically us being able to cross over completely at random. When we just happened to be in the area, we'd always miss one another, but yet that final meeting was something that was kind of ironic to me. I just thought it's quite funny to me that after all that, of going, oh, I happen to be in the area, are you here? Oh, yeah, I'm just going by, are you here? No, I'm not. Oh, that's a shame. We just happen to be on the same train, going to the same location. And I just thought, there's a kind of like happy irony in that. I found out later at the end of 2024 that when my monthly vlogs ended, that Tristan had watched every single one. Like he'd been watching them religiously, monthly, to keep up with what I was doing, so that he was able to still, feel connected in some way. And it's a shame that I'd ended the monthly vlogs now, I think, in hindsight, because he never got to see what I was up to in 2025. But we are where we are. I felt a very great sense not only of loss, but also Tristan helped me in so many ways that I can't ever really properly describe. He brought people together. He brought so many different people from all different walks of life together through his infectious, positive personality. He knew it. I found out that he knew people that like people who I know, but only only from the sense of them being popular or sort of a celebrity status of sorts. That he knew them. They just chilled out with them every now and again, and that goes to show the amazing thing that I'm still able to learn things about him. But sadly, it's in death that I can never go to him. What the hell? How have you never told me this? But nonetheless, I will miss him dearly. His memorial service was lovely. It was really nice to hear from those people who were closest to him and how they saw him, because obviously it's very interesting to see how someone affects your life in so many different ways, and different people as well. Everyone has their own vision of who that person was, and it was lovely to see the effect that Tristan had on people and the different chapters of his life, Yeah. Rest in peace, Tristan.
Hi, I'm Peter Adams, and you may remember me from some previous Red Batter productions, including Time Traveller and Waterside, which of course Tristan was in. Tristan and I go back quite a way. I first got to know him online through Connor back in 2010 when we were both in our mid-teens. I was in the closet, and a lot of our early conversations revolved around struggling with sexuality. And he was, in fact, one of the first people I ever came out to. And he was very supportive. He was lovely. He absolutely adored television. I remember staying up until 4 a.m. with him in 2011, waiting for the finale of Tortured Season 4 to drop. He was just that kind of guy. He had to watch it as soon as it came out. He introduced me to so many people who I now consider friends, including Joe Lidster and so many others who I absolutely adore, and I'm incredibly grateful to him for introducing me to those people in that whole world. I had the pleasure of acting alongside Tristan, of course, in Waterside, Season 4. He was playing Ralphie Merman Jr. I was Darius Weaver, had an eye patch. We were both supervillains getting up to no good. We filmed some scenes together in Chelmsford, and I just remember him being so commanding during his scenes. He had this confidence and this charisma about him that just makes it captivating to watch the scenes back now. And there was this very sweet moment where he puts his hand on my shoulder during the scene, which reminded me of how tactile he was. He was such a good hugger. You'd meet him after having not seen him for weeks or months, and he would see you as if it was just yesterday, and he'd squeeze you so tight. And I really miss stuff like that, to be honest. News of his passing trickled through our friendship group in the first week of December, and it was crushing. It was a shock. I've never had something like this ever happen to me before, and what was just so crushing was the fact that he was a year younger, and I expected him to be part of my life, our lives, for so many more years to come. So it feels like quite a loss. At the time of recording, it's mid to late Feb 2026, so he's been gone for a couple of months, but some of the feelings are still there. I have some days where I can just function perfectly fine, and then there are other days where, especially if I'm by myself doing something that doesn't require much thought, I'll start thinking about him and how much I miss him not being around. It's going to take a while to make sense of this and imagine what a post-Tristan world looks like. But something I'm very proud of is the fact that in all of our 15 years as friends, we never had a crossword exchange between us. It was just this mutual friendship and a great amount of love between the two of us, right till the end. I actually invited him to a gig a couple of months before he passed away to see James Morrison, because we tended to go and see him whenever he was on tour. Unfortunately, Tristan wasn't able to come that time, so I don't think I got to see him in person for quite a while until he passed. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that I didn't get to have a proper sort of natter with him sooner. But we stayed in touch pretty much through to the last weeks of his life, and he brought so much joy to everybody. And I'm going to take all of these memories and all of this love for him forward for the rest of my days. Yeah, rest in peace, mate. Love you.
So I want to just say a little something about Tristan. I met Tristan when we were working on a show called Waterside. It was a web series, and the first impression I got from him was that he was, first of all, incredibly friendly and kind and fun, but then also wonderfully talented, one of the most talented actors that I've had the pleasure of working with. I really honestly just looked at him and thought, wow, this guy can act. He had a real talent for naturalism, which is really hard to find, especially at that young age. Because we were early 20s, and he was just so incredibly talented, and I remember thinking, wow, I want to work with this guy again and again. And then, I don't know if Tristan will remember this, but we also made plans to meet up again in London and do a workshop, a theatre workshop. And yeah, sadly we never got around to doing that. So, but I know that we would have had so much fun, such a laugh. He was the kind of person that you could get on with anyone, you know, he could get on with anyone. And we certainly hit it off right away. I was devastated, of course, when I heard the news, and all I can say is I met Tristan, we probably worked together a total of maybe 5 days, and he left an impact on my life. So just to sum up, I'm sending so much love to his family and friends, and rest in peace, Tristan. Yeah, sending love.
I worked with Tristan one time in Waterside, and even though I met him only the once, it was over a few day period, he was such a memorable person. His creative attitude, his funny nature, and if there was a scene that got too serious, whenever the camera stopped rolling, he would always just break it into humour. Whenever I first heard of his passing, I was more shocked than anything, because he was so young and he meant a lot to so many people. And again, I only met him the once, but it's weird how whenever you meet people even one time, how much of an impact they can make. One thing that he definitely taught me is, even if things get too serious, there's always a brighter side. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. He was just an amazing person. He could light up a room. He was just amazing chaos. And in the best way possible. But he will definitely be missed by so many people, especially those that were in his life more immediately, or people that, like me, just met him the one time. He will definitely be missed amongst a lot of people. And I just hope that he is happy, he is safe where he is now. And I can just think back on the memory of him and how he was just always smiling.
Hello everyone, this is John in Harper. Now, obviously, given from what Chadders has explained, Tristan White passed away a couple of months back, and I didn't know him the best of the best. I don't claim to be his best friend. But there was a 6-month period where I talked to him fairly actively, about 7 years ago. And the reason that's significant is because around that time is when I started making things. And he answered a lot of my questions that I didn't find myself being answered by other people for quite a few years. Because at the time I was quite young, and when I started making things I was quite young. And don't get me wrong, it definitely, disturbed a lot of people. It was like, hello everyone, I'm a teenager and I want to make Doctor Who fan audio dramas with you all. So it's understandable, but he was a very rare person in that he took me at face value and he saw a creative and he didn't let anything like that get in the way. And he very much gave me the right advice at the right time and is still in my memory as someone who wanted to support other people in their creative support. Okay, cut that bit. He was someone who wanted to support creatives no matter what. And it was very much the kind of thing where I felt seen, understood, and very much at peace around him. And I remember talking to him and sending him bits of a book that I wrote back in 2020. And he gave me some very valuable feedback, like proper feedback, reviewing it as a lecturer would, and I didn't see that until uni days. And it was the kind of thing where he was willing to put in the work if you had the work. And that was one of the rare kindnesses that I think Tristan was able to give to someone like myself at the time. And remember a lot of the things he told me about colour grading, about filmmaking, and just the experience of more guerrilla side of filmmaking. And just being able to talk to him about things like Doctor Who was always lovely. So that's my take on Tristan. And the last time that I saw anything to do with Tristan was in the summer of last year, where I just saw him turn up on Joseph Lister's story, and I was like, you know Tristan? And so that was quite funny. It'd been a very long time since I've heard from him, but it was nice nonetheless. But no, I hope all is well. And that's me talking about Tristan. So have a lovely day, everyone.
And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm still here with the Blue Kazoo.
Hello.
Indeed. And now we're going to be doing some comments reading. We have Mastermind Volume 4. We have Sherlock Holmes Episode 2 of Volume 4, but that's a little bit more sporadically released. We have the Philosophical Doctor short trip called Bertie. And then we've got the Time Traveller, so the surprise Time Traveller epilogue, which is titled 2025. So I shall begin with Sherlock Holmes, Volume 4, Episode 2. And we've got two lovely comments here. The first comment is from Yuan the Blue, who says, I can understand why this particular installation would result in mass confusion as dead men walk once more. Though, foreseeing the eventual reforging of friendship between Sherlock and Watson was great to see too. It will not be like the old days. It never will. Still, they can at least talk. Looking forward to learning the next chapter goes. I think it means how the next chapter goes, but nonetheless. Indeed, yeah. So we are working on the third episode at the moment. We're going to be redefining a bit of how Holmes and Watson work. We've had Watson working in the clinic for these last few years, but with Holmes being out of the picture, presumed dead. But we will be looking at kind of having Watson be a what's it called? What's it called? Is it a pathologist? Someone who does autopsies? I should know that.
Pathology is this.
You're right.
I had to think about that one. No, pathology is the study of bones. So
right, no then. A surgeon.
That's it.
Yeah, it's going to be someone who's going to be looking more on a forensic level, because Watson was always doing that anyway in the stuff in the audios that we've made. So he's going to be looking at that. We then have another comment from Dr. Reddy Vivus, Mr. Michael Cox, no less, who writes, "Some clever twists in this tale. It was good to explore the impact of Sherlock's deception on the Watson family. Healing and the rebuilding of trust are usually possible, but they do require time and commitment. Great drama." I love Michael's comments.
I do. They're so lengthy and full of detail and heart. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So we're moving on now to the Mastermind Volume 4 Episode 1 episode. So we start off with Martin Foot 8224, who says a very good opening episode. And then we have another comment from Yuan the Blue, who says, "A very interesting setup. I was wondering why the Guardians were involved, but too bad for them, as the Master has had his own ideas and was more than willing to bide his time." Now, this is the thing. This was more of a comment where I ended up jumping in to respond and explain, because the Mastermind volumes were so delayed in coming out that I think people have just naturally forgotten the story arc, which is I'm not annoyed at, because it has, well, you know this, that I was struggling to get Mastermind volumes 3 and 4 out.
Yeah.
And as a result of struggling to get them out, it meant that they were delayed by nearly 2 years, and so much. You can tell that they were recorded nearly 3 to 4 years prior to the release. We're now officially, as of recording this, it's been 4 years since we made them, and yet only a month or so since they came out.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's just...
a lot of people experience that. Like a lot of people, I don't think, realize how much effort and time it does take for audios to get out. And sometimes we can be a bit of a perfectionist, and we want to make sure it's done just right. So it's just that type of thing.
But naturally people have forgotten. So I've given a bit of explanation in the comment, just explaining that the Guardians have been involved since basically the first volume. But the Master got very far away from them for a little bit. So I've explained that, and that is all well. We then move on to a comment from Dr. Reddy Vivus again, who says, "One would expect with any prison drama that there'd be a slow build, because one has to convey the passage of time and the oppressive nature of confinement. There would also need to be some elements of conflict between the inmates, often with high stakes. So this story certainly delivers on both counts. There's a hint of the Shawshank Redemption, with certain story elements and the name of the narrator, Red. But this episode in the Mastermind series is very clearly its own thing. One can only imagine what the Master would do next, as it's in his nature to come out on top of any situation in which he finds himself. All he needs is time." Elegantly put, as always, Michael.
Oh, as always.
And then lastly, a comment from Just MMS, or Mms.
That's what I was saying. I was like,
Yeah, everyone does. "This was an interesting tale. I just wish it were a little longer, perhaps to get more into the head of the Master. But then again, this is volume 4, so perhaps there'll be more chances to come." Now, you would be right, this is volume 4. I'm assuming by the comment that you're referring to the idea that there would be more volumes with this Master, when there actually won't be. This is the final volume of Mastermind featuring this version of the Master. Now, that doesn't mean there's no more Mastermind volumes to come. Of course, I think I've hinted at this before. Nonetheless, this I understand why people feel like it should have been longer, because again, this is what I was saying just now. This episode is a product of a different era of Overton Audios. It's come out on its 9th year when it was recorded in its 6th. And 2022, in terms of the stuff I was making, was a lot more short form and nowadays a lot of the things that get written end up being quite long form. So Mastermind to me does feel like it stands out a bit for the episodes being a bit shorter, more like 20 to 25 minutes rather than the usual 30 to 40.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, I get why, but it's just a product of its time.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we move on to the second episode of Volume 4, which I believe that you are reading in for, Blue Kazoo.
Indeed. So we got a wee comment from Joanne the Blue saying, when two different versions of the Master are in one place, it always promises chaos. And this was no exception. The plan that Missy is so ever protective of is clever, but so sad, in brackets, for the parents.
It's a very depressing ending when you really think about it. Basically, there's a family who've flown over to New York for Christmas, and the mother has to go and collect something, so she gets her teenage son to look after a child daughter. They go to an emporium which Missy is running.
Mm-hmm.
The children get put into a toy chest, which ends up draining the life from them.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the very last scene is the mum walking around the New York streets, and she can't find the emporium because it's gone. So she never finds out. Her kids just go missing at Christmas now.
Ooh,
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
But yes, anyway, you may carry on.
Yes. So the next comment is from Dr. Redavidis, which is the lovely Michael Cox. John clearly relishes playing the Master, and he does it so well. It was nice to have this Master squaring off against one of his earlier incarnations, but finding a common enemy in the Black Guardian. I've never heard Alia E. Torrey's performance as Missy before, and it was superb. This was a great story, and it made me think back to School Reunion when Brother Lasser tried to get the students to solve the Scasis paradigm.
Yes, indeed. That's a very good comparison, actually.
And then we have one last comment on this video from just MMS or just Mms. We need to figure out which one to do it so we can pronounce it properly. So it is. Ironically, finished this one during the Christmas season itself. I did really like it. The banter between John's Master and Missy is excellent. It's just, it feels too short, and also Gally and Susie don't have much character to them. If this were 10 to 15 minutes longer, it would be really fantastic, but for now, it's just good. If only... ...
Again, it's a product of its time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deny that if we'd made it now, there would have been more of a focus on who they were, a bit more of their backstory. Might have written something in the beginning where they walk past the Emporium and Missy gives them like a flyer or something like that. And then maybe they could have snuck out of their hotel at night to go to the Emporium. That could have been fun, like a little... feels like a Christmas movie, they run away, they kind of run away or escaped in the middle of the night to go and be Christmassy, and then this happens to them.
Yeah.
But again, it was a product of its time, and at that point we were doing much more short form content, so doing that amount of layering in the characters, and considering that it's meant to, our main focus is meant to be the Master and Missy meeting, it just, the short form mixed with the short form, it just sadly was not to be. And now we go on to the Blue Kazoo reading for the Philosophical Doctor short trips.
Ooh, another comment once again. Let us have a wee look. So we have a lovely wee comment from Jan the Blue. A lovely story framed from the perspective of a regular person, with the Doctor only a brief cameo. A pleasure to hear the Irish Doctor again, even if it was only for a few lines. Smiley face. We love having Dan. We love Dan and the Irish Doctor. We do.
Sweet Daniel.
Sweet Daniel. So our next week comment is from Martin Foot 8224. I'm looking forward to more from this Doctor. A really thoughtful and charming tale. Oh, these are so lovely. And so our next comment is from Man at Desk Productions. Hey, we know that howl around. This is a genuinely lovely story, beautiful writing, beautiful reading and performances, and a lovely way to get a hint about a new Doctor ahead of whenever the full releases start. Plus, a lovely hint to Iris as well. To quote Capaldi, evoking the past will sorry.
Oh.
There was a wee thing from there.
Oh.
Cut that out. To quote Capaldi, evoking the past while propelling the new Doctor into the future. Oh, that's lovely. And our last comment, but not least, the lovely Michael Cox once again.
Oh.
Just to echo the sentiment of Jed T. Rhodes, this is beautiful writing. There really are so many lovely, expressive phrasing in the narration that makes it all quite different experience to listening to a full cast audio drama. And of course, this certainly has drama. I like Lucy Smith's pacing, unfolding this harrowing but hope-filled story with the measured voice of third-person narration, which opens a reliable window into Bertie's inner world. We don't get the same with the philosophical Doctor, who remains a mystery to both narrator and Bertie, but that doesn't matter. The Doctor's inner world is revealed in what they say and do. They care enough to risk life and limb for a stranger. I could quite happily have listened to more. Oh, that's lovely.
This story is it invokes a lot of emotions.
Mm.
It's about a young boy called Bertie, who is alive during the Second World War, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The war, we might just say. The house that he's in gets bombed, and the philosophical Doctor is passing by and helps him. And then we go forwards in time to when Bertie is an old man, and he sees philosophical run in to a cafe, but he's wearing the Irish Doctor's costume, so they've just regenerated.
Yeah.
So there's this really lovely thing that kind of links back to the beginning, because the philosophical Doctor isn't yet here yet. We've had them cast for a couple of years now, but whilst we wait for the Fractured Timeline finale to be done, so that Dan can properly hand over the metaphorical TARDIS keys, this was something that Jackie wrote and dedicated to her late father. And it's a very emotional story. It's very well written and very layered in the internal monologue of the characters, and Lucy Smith does an amazing narration for it as well. So it's a very, very lovely story.
It's very nice whenever a writer brings, it's not even the emotion from characters, but brings their own emotion to it. It just makes it seem like so much more personal, and this is already such a personal story for Jackie. It was an amazing job done.
Oh,
definitely so.
Indeed. So, nonetheless, we move forward. We have the comments for Mastermind Volume 4, Episode 3. And the first comment is from Eclipse Posting, who says, "This was a great listen." And then we have a comment from Dr. Redivivus, who says, "Who doesn't love a heist story? This really just flew by. An excellent dynamic of storytelling." Oh, sorry, what? An excellent... I've read that completely wrong. An example of dynamic storytelling. Should one feel sorry for the monk, though? Well, when he's facing off against the master, probably. That's very true as well. The monk, the monk is a character who likes to meddle, but he's very much the clown. So it's like the whole story of a sad clown, but you've got it's like putting a clown with a serial killer.
Ooh.
Like, you might find the clown annoying, but you're going to feel sad for the clown.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then we have another comment from Just MMS or Mms. And they said, "This was good, but like the last one, I do wish it was longer with the character interactions. Can we have some more Monk and Master soon?" Yeah, this one was actually the shortest episode of the volume. Even I was surprised at how short it came out in the end.
How long was it?
19 minutes.
Oh.
And it's not usually that short, but because of the style of it, it was written and needed to be edited like a heist.
Yeah.
So while they're talking about the plan, you've got to be somehow showing off the plan at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was really fast paced. So when they're talking about the heist is happening at the same time. So you've kind of got, you haven't got just got them doing a plan and then going off and doing it. You've got them talking about the plan while the plan happens.
Yeah.
So we lost time on that one because of the style that was required to match the energy of the story. It was the Master getting together contacts that he'd made over the course of the 4 volumes, and then getting them in on this job to steal an amulet. But again, it's a product of its time, like I said.
Yeah.
And then we move on to comments for... Now, here's the thing. I would move on to comments for Time Traveller Epilogue 2025 if anyone had written any. And no one has, sadly. It was a last-minute thing, admittedly. It came out on Christmas Day. I had this idea. Well, you're in this as well, so you remember how close to Christmas it was.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just had the idea. It was something where I thought... I was listening back to the old Time Traveller series, and I thought, well, all of that is set pre-2020. And it's in a world where half the human race have died to a virus. So now that we're on the, and obviously now that we're on the very firmly other side of COVID. This being set maybe 6 years later, and we are now, as a result, in our 6th year after COVID. What's the world like now? So I just wrote a little epilogue about how things change and people are forgotten and how it's not all perfect legacy. As so often is with politics, people move on and you kind of get moved aside, and people build and grow their own lives. And when you remove yourself to focus on something that isn't about the people, which is what Peter M. George's character Aaron does, it was also a bit maybe of a, maybe not a love letter is the right word, but a letter to myself to remind myself that it's not all about the work.
Yeah.
Because that's what's in this story. He was working for so much time that he missed all of these milestones in his friends' lives. So I wrote this and to kind of be that I was kind of the POV in a way. Like meeting up with people and then realizing so much has changed. And I wrote this... It became a bit therapeutic for me because, especially when listening to it at Christmas, especially because of Tristan, because of that feeling of lost time and feeling like you'd missed everything, and Tristan not being able to meet up as often.
Yeah,
you feel that anyway. So it was kind of like a nice sort of a healing thing, perhaps. But yeah, we got a lot of people back to play their roles again. It was quite nice, really. And of course, the thing that nobody's really picked up on from it, which is that we introduce the spin-off series to Time Traveller that we're going to be doing at some point, which will be titled the British Temporal Organisation. Which is a little bit of a twist on what's happened in Time Traveller before. Time Traveller has always been about characters who've come back in time to change things.
Yeah.
This character who arrives at the end, who's called Jamie, he's from 1947. So he's from the past who's come to the future. So yeah, while he is a time traveller, it puts a twist on, he's a guy out of time. He's not the guy who knows more. So there's a little bit of a twist in that. We're also going to delve into more high level, high concept sci-fi with actually having time travel be explored a little bit more in detail. There's going to be a bit of a step away from it being so heavily grounded as it has been. We're still going to have it grounded in some form of reality, but, you know, we've already had time travel kind of introduced. So that will get made at some point. There's no date on that at all. It's just something I would like to do at some point. But yes, we shall see. We shall see. And now we go on to Mastermind, Volume 4, Episode 4, which I believe you're reading for.
I am indeed. We have only one comment from this video, and who could it be? It's Michael Cox!
Yay!
He provides us with the good content for this podcast. Not sponsored. So, Michael Cox says, a good story. The amulet seemed to provide the master with just what he needed to achieve not only the power he is craved so desperately for centuries, but also revenge against the Guardians. However, it seems that the master's greatest, in quotes, enemy is himself.
Yes, indeed, because this also doubled up as Connor J. Sumner's debut as the previous incarnation to John's master. And if you remember this far back, when we were making the originals, John used to, before he became the master fully, he used to play the master who was under the guise of General Marsh.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to be a good and better person. But ultimately failed and regressed to become the master again, become that version of himself. This is the version of General Marsh who was good. He then later regenerates into John's incarnation, and that's where he begins these struggles.
Yeah, the internal struggle.
But this is the version who was good. So he has a look of sinisterism about him there, but it's based contextually within the story. He's just not very happy about John's master. But yeah, so this was a nice debut of that version of General Marsh, while also setting up the next Cravat volume, which is currently being produced, which I'll just name drop here. It's called Trial of the Master. One thing that quite a lot of people haven't clocked onto yet, which has made me quite sad, is that the last Cravat volume ends with the ending of Mastermind Volume 4. Because the master is imprisoned and put on trial, and the Cravat Doctor is called to be present at the trial. So we have the scene at the end of the Multiverse of Recovery, Cravat Doctor volume, where the TARDIS gets called, and the Doctor's taken away and brought before the Master to give evidence. So not many people picked up on that at the time and were excited, but nobody once thought that at the end of Mastermind Volume 4 we'd see that. Which is, I suppose, fun, but nobody's also noticed that that's happened, I don't think. Or at least, again, they've not said it.
The amount of people that are going to be listening to this hitting themselves being like, oh my God,
fingers crossed. But it means that as a result, we're now all synced up. Finally, Mastermind Volume 4 is out after years. We're now synced up with the 10th year of Overton Audios, which was something I was determined to do. And we now move forward with the big stories that we've got coming up for Cravat this year. And that is all of the comments reading we've got. We had a lot to catch up on. Next month, we'll be reading the Torchwood live-action minisode, The Signal, comments, and then we'll be reading all 7 parts of the Magenta War, and there have been a couple of comments there. There have been quite a lot of comments there, lots of discussions, which is always good.
Grab your cup of tea and a wee Becky.
Indeed.
This is going to be a raid.
Yeah, but speaking of the Magenta War, as you said earlier, myself and Michael Cox actually discussed the behind-the-scenes elements of it. Shall we go and listen to that?
Definitely.
Overton Audios presents.
Everyone on Gallifrey has heard of the Doctor, and some even know details about your adventures, but only a handful of people know the whole story.
I've made my decision. Grandfather and I are exiles.
wanderers. Maybe we'll never be able to return home.
I'm known as the Doctor.
This isn't Earth. Magenta isn't a place, it's a person.
I'm just a traveller who got lost.
Susan of the House of Longbarrow, we meet again.
All I've ever wanted to do since I came to your empire was to leave.
So we can use Susan's data extract to track her to her next destination.
The one place he knows I dare not go.
We need a confession to smuggling and treason, so the only other option is torture.
I'm begging you, don't do it.
Most of us have heard of the Time Lords, but few have actually met one. And those who make such a claim aren't often believed. Besides, people have only the vaguest ideas of your people.
Do what you agreed to do and everything will be fine.
I should have a flight plan mapped out in a few minutes. Something's coming towards us through the vortex. It's not slowing down. It's going to hit us. Hold on!
How many dusty old Time Lords have lived for thousands of years and achieved nothing?
I abandoned you, I'd never have a moment's inner peace ever again. I made him a promise to protect you and I intend to keep it.
I watched the Matrix entries and I saw everything Susan went through, and all because you took her from Gallifrey.
You have no right to speak about our future.
Your presence here, your actions, maybe they are what builds the timeline.
Breaking the first law of time. To intervene and change the course of history.
Doctor Who. Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension 3. The Magenta War. Coming the 10th of January 2026 at 12 p.m.
Hello there, my name is Chelsea Lagan and I play Susan Foreman for the first Doctor series and episodes and everything like that. One thing I did find whenever I was cast for this role, which was a complete and utter accident, by the way, which is most of the roles that I get cast in is by pure chance. Essentially, Connor was looking for a Susan to be cast, couldn't they find one, and during a eventful phone call that I listened to an episode which had Susan in it, and I just done a voice, and here we are, many episodes later. And honestly, playing Susan has been such a joy. I feel that a lot of people would feel the pressure because she is such an iconic character from Doctor Who, and trying to replicate not only the way she speaks, but her mannerisms as well, can be quite a daunting task. But I do feel that I give my best during this, and I hope Michael thinks that as well. With all the scripts that I've gotten for Susan, it was like, wow, he's definitely had a backlog of these. This is something like a passion project of his that he's been wanting to do for a very long time. And you can tell by the way that he writes how passionate he is about getting these stories across. And to see how Susan and the Doctor get on even before the first official episode, whenever Doctor Who came out, and it's just to see their dynamic and the way that he writes it, you can almost visualize how the scene plays out, and it's amazing with amazing numerous casts of people. And I feel whenever you're so passionate about a project and other people that are working on it are as passionate as you are, then it just makes the whole experience much more amazing. And I think whenever I was first looking at Susan, me and the actual woman that plays Susan are very similar heights as well, and physicality. So we're very, very tiny women and very petite women. And I feel that especially seeing the photos of Michael Cox. I do hope that one day we'll be able to do a wee photo shoot together, or I can get some costumes and we can Photoshop us side by side, because I do believe that with my height and Michael's height, it's kind of like the most similar height between Carl Ann Ford and William Hartnell. But yeah, it's just like, it's brought so much more views, not only to the channel, but people recognizing each other's work, Michael's writing, Connor's editing, and castability skills. I just believe that this is going to blow up so much more, and I do hope that Michael keeps writing, because I love playing Susan so much, and I never hope that it ends. But, you know, all good things must come to an end eventually. But for the meanwhile, I've enjoyed this experience so much. And I look forward to seeing what's to come.
Gresham's been an absolutely wonderful character to play, because he's very different to other characters that I've played. And I think the only way that I can sort of really sum up when I'm reading through the script how I see him is, you sometimes see those scenes in films when a lot of action's happening and it's sort of happening as if it's sped up, but there's the one person who's just sort of sat there while everything else goes on around them. And Gresham's very much always sort of struck me and tried to play him as that sort of person. That he's in the midst of the action, but he bides his time, and he's sort of always watching, always looking, seeing how things go. And even though, you know, he's obviously very capable of taking part in the action and things like that, he's a very, I'm going to say slow-paced character, but more in the sense that I feel like he embodies very much the think first, act later, which in the middle, in a Doctor Who setting is always an interesting thing to do, because I think to a lot of audiences, Doctor Who stories, it's all about the action and obviously the pacing and things like that. And so it's wonderful to have a character whose pacing is sort of, you know, in terms of embodying the character, his pacing is slower, but he is still able to match the pace of what's going on around him and match the story. You know, and it's been a real fun and interesting and fun experience to play him, and I certainly look forward to seeing where we go or where things go with him in future.
Hello, Overton Audios. Yep, that's right, it's me again. Hello, Connor. Hello, Michael. I was approached to talk a little bit about my time playing Tara Lassalon for Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension. In short, I had a lot of fun with it. I remember I got the role because I initially played Dick Whittington. I think it was Dick Whittington. Was it Dick Whittington? Yes, it was. Well, it was credited as Richard Whittington, but you know. But that was back in Lost in Time, the episode Saved by the Bells. That was well over a year ago now. In fact, it came out on my birthday, which is very, I suppose, coincidental. But I remember I had a very good time recording for that. And I was then approached again by Connor, telling me that because of that performance, Michael had requested specifically for me to play a character in an upcoming volume, and I was very touched by that, actually, because you know it was very touching to know that I'd made such an impression, that I'd been asked back, basically. So yeah, I was very, I accepted, and then if I just scroll back up, I made my first appearance as Tara Lassalon in the first glimpses of Gallifrey in A Holiday to Remember. That was back in... that was a year ago. That was exactly a year ago, 5 days ago. So, I don't like how time is passing. But yeah, so I think shortly after that, I then got all the scripts for the Magenta War, and I basically slammed through all of it in one night. It's a bit of a blur now because I was very tired by the end of it. It was a lot of shouting. My voice was shot. I had to go and take a nap afterwards, but I had a lot of fun recording it. It was a really, really, really quite fun series. It's really it's a really sort of ambitious undertaking. I believe it's like, you know, the amount of parts that are going on. So it's a very big, very interconnected, weaving story. One that I can imagine Michael is very proud of. Yeah, again, I had a lot of fun recording it. The fourth episode sticks out with Safari Jim. So yeah, I there was obviously all of the time spent where it's just the Doctor and Taran. There's a lot of quite fun moments there. With it's a very interesting dynamic as well, because actors, age-wise in terms of the actors, I'm much younger, but I believe it's established that I'm playing a character who's actually much older than the Doctor. So it's a really interesting dynamic sometimes, but we do get the odd joke in there, which I always appreciate. You know me. But yeah, I really enjoyed this project. I really enjoyed working on it, and really sort of perfecting I spent a lot of time trying to really get into the mindset of Taran, and I fear at certain parts I may have gone a little bit mad. But, you know, that's part of it, I suppose. But yeah, it's a really great project. I really enjoy recording for Michael's stuff. Oh, my voice cracked. I hope to work more in the future. I would actually like to get him in some of my stuff, but, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Not me just stealing people away from Overton Audios. But yeah, so I hope everyone's enjoyed the series and hearing me on the channel for the billionth time. There's plenty more where that came from, I can tell you that. But yeah, really loved this series, and I really hope everyone out there enjoyed it just as much as I did recording it. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you back over to your lovely hosts.
As an avid listener and sometimes co-star of First Doctor Adventures, I have found it absolutely amazing. It's been my favourite project from Overton in the last 3 years, I'd say. I've listened to them all, absolutely loved them. I know that you guys are going to be speaking primarily about Magenta War, but I just wanted to take the time to say that it really is just the tops when it comes to Overton. It really has been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to more. It's just fascinating how well it has been, how well you've managed to replicate classic 60s Doctor Who, replicate dialogue well, whilst also keeping it incredibly fresh. It's this weird mix of perfectly in keeping with 1960s TV writing and the writing of the actual show itself, and keeping very, very closely to the characters, whilst also being something that it stands to, it stands side by side with modern day Doctor Who. The way that Michael has not only done a fantastic tribute to Hartnell, but also made his own it's a very tricky thing to do with a character like the First Doctor, because he is really so different. David Tennant once said that the Doctor that most people do these days is Troughton, because the First Doctor is so different. And it's something that, as we know in the actual TV show, several actors have tried to do their William Hartnell, and I find personally that they don't often get it completely right. We've had David Bradley, we had Richard Hurndall, and both of them, it felt more like an approximation, whereas Michael's William Hartnell is bang on, going down to the little ticks and whirs in his voice, the breath itself, and the ers and the ums, even those feel Hartnell-esque. I'm biased, but I think Chelsea's just pulled off a fantastic Susan in the pitching up of the voice, and the timbre of that voice is just, it's just perfect. And for some, it just feels really right. I feel like when I'm listening to a First Doctor Overton story, I am listening to not a Big Finish, but it's almost like listening to the recordings of Dalek's Master Plan. It feels right out of the 60s, and it's been done beautifully. And I think it really is a testament to how fantastic the cast and writers and producers have been on these adventures, and I am looking forward to more. Obviously, I've been in a couple of episodes as Silas, which is always a joy, and I really hope that character comes back soon, because he's wonderful, and it's just a complete pleasure to know that whenever I've done an episode, I go, oh, this is going to be brilliant, because the stories are just fantastic. My absolute highlight was being in the story about Oscar Wilde, because that was just perfectly written. The way that Oscar was written, and his dialogue and his attitude was just spot on. And as a massive nerd for Oscar Wilde and his literature and his work, it was just fanboy glee seeing that matched with 60s Doctor Who. So well done to all of those involved in Magenta War, because that was just a joy to listen to. And yeah, I got quite emotional at the last episode. It was wonderful. Long live more Overton Doctor Who First Doctor adventures.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. And I am here with none other than Mr. Michael Cox.
Greetings and salutations, O'Connor. Great oracle of the Overton Audios podcast.
Indeed. How have you been?
Not too bad. I think, as is everybody, fits and starts, sometimes very, very busy, and wondering whether life is so busy you just want to say, stop the world, I need to get off and just have a think about things. So you know what it's like. Just concerned about a friend at the moment who's just gone into hospital today. So it's a bit of a shame, but hopefully, we always say, hospital is the best place to hopefully get the support that folks need for changing health needs.
Of course, yeah, of course. Well, I hope it's all a positive outcome either way.
Indeed, yeah. So my mind's been a little bit elsewhere.
That's fair
today, understandably.
Yeah.
But been looking forward to recording this with you, because we have lots to talk about, because we have recorded a great deal for Overton Audios for the First Doctor adventures quite recently.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We've been very, very busy, very, 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 very busy indeed. We've we obviously recorded a podcast segment back in October when talking about Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension 2. We're now back here just only 4 months later. Usually it's once a year we get a volume out, but here we are only 4 months later, talking about the big 7-part epic that is the Magenta War. Which, of course, I believe you finished writing 2 years ago?
It's scary, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I believe it was because I remember there was a lot of development because Wanderers has gone through many different iterations. I mean, I know we talked about it briefly, but just to gloss over some very briefly here. We obviously had, I think, Beyond Belief went through quite a few versions in Wanderers 2, as did
definitely.
as did Revolutionary Minds, which started out as a revolutionary woman and then developed further with John Smith. And then Prelude, obviously, we kind of teased as to what was to come, which is now what we're here to talk about, in fact.
Indeed.
And Magenta War, how did it all come about? How did it start in your mind?
Well, I don't want to be blunt, but it's your fault.
Oh.
I will unpack that soon. No, I'm meaning it playfully, Connor, honestly. Because you said to me, one of the problems that we have, and we see it in some of the works of expanded media in the Whoniverse elsewhere, where they try to get early Doctors to meet classic monsters out of sequence. And it's like, oh, surely we have to preserve that part of continuity. You know, the first time we see, I don't know, the Autons should be with the Third Doctor.
Yeah.
The Fourth Doctor with the Zygons and so forth. So, you know, it's nice to see how the Doctors from earlier eras might react to classic monsters from later encounters with later iterations of the Doctor. But I think you were saying, well, let's try and preserve that part of continuity. So therefore, for the first Doctor, working principle is no Daleks, no Cybermen, Sontarans, whatever. So we have to have really new monsters, which potentially could crop up with some of the later Prison Doctors, possibly some of the so-called BBC continuity Doctors, because you do have people playing some of those as well.
Yes, yeah.
And what's actually happened for me is I've not shied away from that idea, but I've tended not to deal with the bug-eyed monsters, as we heard from Sidney Newman in An Adventurer's Space and Time. But I think, although I've done maybe a little bit of an exploration of space stuff, we haven't had really strange characters, alien creatures, apart from in the very first Doctor stuff I did for Overton Audios, which was Enemies of Time.
Yes.
And the Sauri were like the sort of creatures that you think are in Area 51. Those sort of very traditional looking aliens. But apart from them, anything else has tended to be sort of more or less a historical with a extraterrestrial element. And of course, then we had Flight from Gallifrey, of course. The Rings, the Riddle of the Rings on the Rings of Akaten. Yeah, we're dealing with some of those aliens, but they're mostly humanoid, and they're not really villains. They're individuals who are villainous. We're not really meeting a whole species that's going to be a thorn in the Doctor's side later down the line. Whether we ever introduce an alien that will have that function remains to be seen. We've been doing so much else that we haven't really perhaps gone down that rabbit hole and see where it takes us. So I think part of the thing with the Magenta War is I thought we need to almost give the Doctor and Susan a reason for wanting to just have some downtime away from everything else and just say, actually, it's interesting out in the universe, exploring and seeing different places and cultures and botanical species and things, because the Doctor does like to draw things, as we know, and record them. And in terms of species, well, there's always a few blank pages in the back of the Galactic Gazetteer that he could fill in, as we know. Like the flying green guinea pigs. I don't know whether we've given them a species name. I don't think we have, actually.
No.
But anyway, so it's more a question of, I like the humanoid sort of interactions rather than this great sort of species that's going to be a blight on the cosmos, and the Doctor will have to step up and deal with them. Because I feel that to a great degree, we're only going to get that much later. We're talking post Unearthly Child. That's not to say that the Doctor and Susan can't be plunged into certain situations where they think, oh my goodness, was it a good idea to leave the safety of Gallifrey?
Yeah.
So the Magenta War is an opportunity to pose that question in a sort of limited sort of way, of saying, well, Gallifrey is a power in the universe. They look down on the lesser races, and they monitor the web of time established by Rassilon, and they're protected by the transduction barrier, and they are lofty creatures. But if they step beyond the protective sphere of Gallifrey, they're just as much as risk from what's going on in the cosmos as anybody else. And that's a bit of a rude awakening. So I wanted to split up the Doctor and Susan and see what could happen, mindful that from a BBC point of view, and a criticism from Carol Ann Ford, Susan doesn't develop as a character. She's really the damsel in distress, and it's no matter what experience she has, it's almost like, well, I've not learnt anything from this. And it's almost like next episode, she's reset back to the damsel in distress. So we have to sort of nod to a great degree in that direction and say, yes, she is a child from Gallifreyan point of view, of 96 coming into 97. We've just had her 97th birthday in Prelude. And she's beginning to, sort of, she's not bolshy with the Doctor, but sometimes she makes asides, and we had a bit of that in the Lost in Time series, where she says a couple of things under her breath, but she's not strong enough to repeat herself, because she's just trying to be a little bit rebellious. So when he says, oh, you could use this, you could use this apparatus for this particular purpose, and he says, oh yes, funny you didn't even think to mention it back when we were doing that. And then she says under her breath, you didn't think of it either. What was that? Oh, nothing. So she doesn't want to get into trouble. So she's still a Gallifreyan schoolgirl in many ways. So we have to sort of respect that. So the only way really is when she's in dire jeopardy is allowing the wonderful Chelsea Lagan, who has played now 22 out of the 25 First Doctor Susan releases, I think, that we've got on the channel.
Yes.
And just to explore emotional range, because that's really what's all we can do, really. Because she can't, apart from, I suppose, getting Susan to problem solve, because we forget it's not just the Doctor is like this scientist, but most of these Gallifreyans, she is probably as well. She's an advanced species. Okay, she's not at the same level as the Doctor because she hasn't lived as long, but her Gallifreyan brain, well, it streets ahead of many of the people that she will meet. So she may not be the cleverest person in the room, to quote, was it Terence Dicks? But she's the second cleverest person in the room, probably.
Yeah.
So I just thought let's split them up and see what happens. So we have this adventure where they're on a war-torn planet, they're in a bunker. That's always a very stressful environment when you've got only a few people together. And the Doctor will be like, I don't want to be in here. I need to get out and do my own thing. The stubbornness of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And the rudeness of the Doctor when he doesn't get his way. As well, which I think is important to keep that going, because his edges haven't been softened, because I think especially Barbara has that sort of softening effect upon him. From time to time. It's not foolproof strategy, but there is, where they're trying to finesse the Doctor, Barbara and Ian. They said, well, of course you know where we're going, and it's wonderful, and they're really trying to butter him up, and he plays to it because he loves it.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of that. Is this? I can't remember which episode it's from now. There's this little quip where they're looking on the scanner as I think a ship flies off, and Ian goes, "Well, at least they know where they're going." And then there's this bit. It's always the little things, like you see the First Doctor's eyes widen and goes, implying I don't. Like, oh, I see that you're ready to go home then, my boy. Let's go home then. And then he's like, no, wait, hang on. It's like it very much is on the other side of the coin. What you're talking about there is like he's enjoying that feeling of being in control or being complimented, and then simultaneously is a little bit insecure about any implication that he doesn't quite know what he's doing.
Yeah. So I think that idea of a three-parter was we'd have a scene. Well, a regular prelude didn't end with the introduction of the mysterious Director of Homeworld Security from Gallifrey, but rather it was the first scene where they think they've gone to the Eye of Orion for a bit of a break. After all that stuff with meeting John Smith, and John Smith dies saving the Doctor, and they're just feeling a bit, and then they meet Chopin, and he's a bit rude, and his lover Georges Sand, she's very rude. So they think, oh well, we met historical people, and that was a bit bad. That wasn't very nice, and Henry VIII was awful. So oh dear, meeting all these, famous Earth people, it's not good, is it really? And then John Smith was really nice, but he died to save the Doctor, and he didn't really even know him particularly well. So they just think, let's just have some downtime. Let's go to the Eye of Orion. Apparently the TARDIS has been there before. Doctor thinks, I'll change the coordinates so we don't land, like the TARDIS landing within the TARDIS, like we have in the Fourth Doctor adventure, where it's, it's almost like recursive mirrors. It's endlessly going back and forth, and you think, oh my God, within. So I think we'll just change a few coordinates. Doctor thinks he's doing it very, oh, I know what I'm doing, very nonchalant. And then turns out, what was that beep, says Susan, because she has doubts about his ability to fly the thing, because she's read the manual, but she's not allowed to touch the console most of the time. It's sort of boys in their cars, isn't it? So it's like, no, you can't drive. Anyway, so the Doctor's a little bit chauvinistic, I think, in this regard, with regard to the TARDIS at least. So the first scene was meant to be them landing on Bardeen. They meet Gresham, and the Doctor starts pontificating and saying, oh, and he was saying that, oh, well, you're in the middle of the Magenta War. He says, and then he starts talking about the Battle of Magenta, which was a real thing as part of the Austro-Napoleonic Wars or whatever. And he says, do you know, it was in the town of Magenta, and it even gave a colour its name. And it's like this vibrant sort of pinky colour. So I thought Magenta the Magenta War, it just sort of sounds, maybe I'm going to say iconic, but it's just got a ring to it. So, and then I thought, well, why is it called the Magenta War? Do the troops of one side, the rebels, do they wear like a flash of magenta on their uniforms? And I think, no, the leader or the person who's behind it will be called Magenta. And so, it all really then develops from that of like, there is a war named after a person. Why? What's behind the war? And originally, because it was only going to be 3 parts with an introductory scene, which takes us to the bunker, the Doctor, Susan and Gresham will run to the bunker and there'll be the cliffhanger. And we don't know whether the Doctor is going to get there or whether he's going to be hit by shrapnel and get concussed, or we don't know. But instead, it becomes just a clean episode 1 of scene 1 of episode 1. And we have that whole thing of like, they're in the bunker together and it's a very pressurized situation. And I think Gresham is very patient, but he does get riled from time to time. And Susan gets anxious, and the Doctor just gets very annoyed.
Well, I'd say that Gresham's quite firm in that regard. He's a very good challenger for the Doctor. We know that obviously later in the story that Taran challenges the Doctor in many other ways, certainly in terms of his protectiveness and authority and well, I don't want to say authority of Susan, but he does feel he has to look after her. And Taran questions that quite a lot, questions the security, and which I always thought was a very interesting line to go down, which was the security of the family relationship. Yes. It's not something that the show ever really explored, sadly, which was which was that dynamic. Obviously, with the context of what we have of the show as it's moved forward, like Gallifrey, Time Lords, which the original era didn't have, I think it's enabled us to be able to explore those themes of Susan and her life on Gallifrey, which the show originally could never have done. Which it's why I found it so exciting when delving into, like, by starting off, when you've been doing the Glimpses of Gallifrey series. It's been a really fun thing to look at, and of course it's some of the earliest stories for the character of the Doctor.
Yes, indeed.
It's been a very interesting road to go down, and obviously I always, I think we've talked about this at length, which is I was so excited to be able to edit Gallifrey in the first Doctor's era. Obviously, we can talk about spoilers quite freely here because it's all out now. But we see Gallifrey realistically from the era that really is from the 8th Doctor era. Isn't that right? Because obviously there's a reference to the Matrix about there being 8 Doctors.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's also quite interesting to be able to delve into a Gallifrey from the 8th Doctor's era, but from the perspective of looking inwards towards the first Doctor. It's always, I mean, I had a lot of fun editing the sequence in episode 5 when Taran, the newly regenerated or loomed Taran, commandeers a TARDIS.
Oh yes. Yeah.
It was quite odd actually, because and correct, if you feel, obviously tell me if I'm maybe being a bit silly. It made me think of Doctor Who Devious a little bit.
I'm not familiar with that.
Are you not? Are you not familiar with Doctor Who Devious?
No.
Oh my word! It's a fan film that got shot 30 years ago that's still being made to this day.
Is it?
Yeah, they
What platform do they use? YouTube or somewhere else?
It is YouTube. Yeah, they've released the first 4 or 5 episodes at this point.
Wow.
But it's where the Doctor's regeneration is interrupted in the middle of him regenerating into the 3rd Doctor.
I wonder if I've seen a bit. Have they got clips of it as well? Like
Yeah, they've Daleks and all that sort of stuff. But they've been releasing them they've been finishing the full episodes after all these years.
Right. Who plays the Doctor? Presumably the
Tony Garner. I'll send you some links later.
I'm intrigued.
But, yeah, so the beginning of that first episode is a group of Time Lords traveling to a nearby planet to observe, and it's about 3 or 4 Time Lords all operating at the console.
this sounds somewhat familiar.
It might have been, you might have seen glimpses of it a few years ago, potentially, but it's been coming out as full edited stories for the last few years or so now.
Right.
Yeah, it's
and its pertinence to our current conversation. Just to get back onto that, so I understand.
Oh, of course, yeah. So the beginning of the first episode features a group of Time Lords piloting a TARDIS, but piloting it, what you might say, the way it should have been piloted. So it gave me, editing episode 5 with the pilot, piloting it like a ship, giving readouts to the captain, while it actually like, even though it's a TARDIS, it feels like it's treated. It's almost treated differently to how the Doctor does, which is why it gives me very strong Doctor Who devious vibes, and also
I'm actually went onto their YouTube channel. Yes, I have seen bits of this. Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I'd forgotten about it because it's about 7 or 8 years. Oh, some of it goes back 11 or 12 years. Goodness me.
Yes,
wow.
but they have released the full stories now. So episode 1 came out 7 years ago, and then about a year ago they released the 5th episode. But they're aiming to try and have, I believe, the next episode is the 6th and final story. I think it's the finale. But it's all been coming together really, really nicely, and they've all been doing it themselves. They really kind of found a new life with it in COVID. So they've been pushing forward to try and get it done now. And do it to the best of their ability, of course. But no, like basically that scene gave me very strong 1990s Doctor Who fan film vibes, because there are some other films made by Chris Hoyle in the 90s.
Yes, now I do remember his stuff.
And it just, I don't know, it just gave me that vibe. Like I could imagine, because it was Jed T. Rhodes who played the pilot, and I think his voice, I think, was perfect for giving the commentary on the TARDIS.
Yes.
I can imagine him in kind of like a very sort of, a black sort of, not suit, but like, a skin tight sort of sweater type thing.
Oh, I know the sort of thing you mean.
Yeah. So like piloting and watching all the screens and all the dials, and the captain sort of having a little bit more of an official sort of black and white robes sort of look. I just it just gave me very nice sort of classic Who vibes. So you were saying about all the characterization of the Doctor and Susan, and obviously how Magenta War started.
Yes, indeed.
And essentially, was it always meant to be a 7-parter? Or
no, I think I thought it would be, there would be that introduction with a cliffhanger at the end of Prelude. So and we usually have a gap, and I thought it would be a cliffhanger, and people were going, no, what happens next? What happens next? So I thought that was a bit cruel, but also brilliant to keep people like thinking what's going to happen and speculating and things about what has happened. Did they get to the bunker in time? What happened or whatever. And that there would be a short period in the bunker in episode 1 of Wanderers Volume 3, which, is now obviously 7 parts rather than 3 parts. And
it was meant to be 3 parts.
Oh, it was meant to be 3 parts. And at some point, about halfway through that episode 1, we'd have them go out and they would get captured, as they do in the final version of episode 1. So Gresham and Susan would get somehow separated from the Doctor. They would be airlifted and they'd end up on the prison planet. And so therefore there would be a whole section where they're just on that planet, and then they try and escape, and then they get put on trial, but we don't see Gresham's trial. We just see Susan's, because at the end of the day she's a main character. But Gresham at that point was just to provide the almost like the surrogate parent, nurturing, protective role. But as the serial developed, it became Gresham became much more than he was initially. He was just we couldn't have had Susan completely on her own. I don't think she'd have probably gone to pieces. So she'd have had to have someone.
She'd have completely fallen apart, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
She needed even though she's young, and she needed a kind of a fatherly figure.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And Gresham kind of provided almost like a kind of more youthful First Doctor vibe for her. But God, I remember editing that scene. Do you remember when I was editing it? I was sending you snippets from it, and then when I timed it really well with the score, so that when the moment that Hal Rowan mentions torture, the music sort of drops to a kind of dramatic operatic, because this is possibly now the most danger that we've ever had Susan in.
Yeah.
Because she's always been kind of protected by the Doctor. The Doctor's always stood in front of her, or when she has been in danger, she's always been kidnapped. And, typically the Doctor always catches up and then is able to negotiate her being freed. But in this sense, the Doctor is not heard from once. I know even though you're credited for it, you're not in episode 2 at all.
No.
And there's a very, very noticeable absence in episode 2. Like you kind of like, oh yeah, he'll show up. The court scene happens, and you're like, oh, he'll come bursting in the doors in a minute. He'll burst through those doors any minute now, and he will be like, stop this trial, stop this travesty, and he never does. And you're listening to this court scene as you're like, any minute, and he never does, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse, to a point where torture gets mentioned, and you're like, right, okay, he's got to show up at some point. Like, he's got to show up now that we've been told that Susan's about to be tortured. And then he never does, and she's just crying her eyes out, and then the closing credits play, and you're like,
yeah.
I remember playing it to a couple of other people at the time, and they had a very uneasy sort of chill on their spine about it. They kind of had a bit of a shiver on their spine about that idea of where's the Doctor. And we're like, well, this is the thing. We don't know. He's been abandoned on a war-torn planet. He's been left behind. And there's no TARDIS. And this is him pre-Unearthly Child.
Yeah.
And it was just a very notable shiver, even though everyone knows that Susan will be fine. It's like, well, she can be fine, but she can also have been tortured and be fine later. And it's this, I think everyone has a natural, every Doctor Who fan has a natural protectiveness of Susan.
Truly, yeah.
So when that scene was happening, I was very emotional about it. I have a very strong connection to the First Doctor's era. And I was honestly, the Magenta War has been so exciting and adrenaline inducing to edit, because there's been so many elements that kind of break from the mold of what we've been doing already.
Yes,
but break the mold in a sort of a still keeping traditionally consistent with the tone of the era, while also taking steps to be taking more risks with the story.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, like having the First Doctor interact with another Time Lord pre-War Games.
Yes.
Like, obviously the Monk is a different thing, I think. But having Tara Lassalon, who is claiming to be CIA, who is claiming to be there to capture them and bring them back to Gallifrey, and playing even though it's all a ruse in the end, having that is, I just like it when we're able to tell really bold stories that kind of break away from the norm, but in a way that it's a very simple explanation. Yeah. And it's been really, really nice, and as well as that, all the characters, like the build-up. I mean, this is the thing. For about 5 episodes, nobody knows a thing about Jolliffe Mantine other than he's a Zantillionaire?
A zillionaire,
A zillionaire. And
who even has a cat nanny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he's just a guy who is very rich and able to assist or not in the war. He's just known as this very, very rich guy. and then we finally meet him. Same thing goes for Magenta. We've got obviously we learn a bit more about Gresham as well and his ties to everything. I think as well, Governor Hal Rowan is so traditionally classic Who fascist villain.
Yeah.
I think what was it? One of your notes was it was almost like kind of a little bit like Nyder from Genesis.
A little bit like Nyder, but also Charles Gray playing Blofeld. You know, the very suave version,
Yes.
the one who has body doubles. And Charles Gray is very, very sort of a very sort of well-spoken actor, and that was the voice that Chris Walker Thompson did. In fact, it was so uncannily like that that Charles Gray voice, and I thought, goodness, and he put so much energy into the performance. Well, of course, and was matched, of course, by Chelsea playing Susan, and you know he's doing malevolent without being moustache twirling, but it's just like pure darkness, really.
Yeah.
This is someone who's contemplating genocide, as we learn in later episodes, and you know he plays around with the advocate prime, who is the case for the lawyer for the defense, who says, "Oh, you won't really," and he says, "Oh, you know, it's I fooled you with my performance," but then he says, "But if we don't get what we want, I still reserve it as an option."
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that, dear listeners, you might like to know, is that originally Hal Rowan didn't appear in the trial scene.
Wow.
It was just the advocate prime and the prosecutor prime, just a bit like almost like Victorian judges. You could imagine, I thought, you know, when Oliver Twist in Oliver the Musical is in, if you've seen it, presumably most people might have seen it at least once in their lives. You get that idea, or like almost like the Mr. Bumble character as well. This idea of the prosecutor prime is very much like, and we Rufus Ricks is there, the boy who's stolen some bread because he's hungry, to establish these are the sorts of characters that we're dealing with. Prosecutor prime is the "how dare you, boy, you know, you know, and this is terrible, you know, transportation for life," you know, this extreme reaction to you know something which probably deserved more understanding and compassion, which we then have in the advocate prime. But later on, as I'm developing the story, and I say to you every so often, I haven't managed to finish the story. I need another episode because I've got several storylines going at once. Because I think I ought to move back a bit and say, my original ending of the story was that they would meet Magenta. Well, Susan would be rescued very early on, and Gresham too, and it would be Taran and the Doctor using the time ring, not Jolliffe Manteen's second best space yacht to go to Kifoon. So they use the time ring. It's working perfectly well. They go and rescue Susan and Gresham, and they say, "Where do we go now?" And Gresham says, which is probably the only thing retained from that whole narrative, was we need to go to Gorid. And they said, "Why do we want to go there?" It's, you know, checking the coordinates to say, well, it's the moon that orbits Stowe. That's like almost like the center of things. Why would we want to be at the heart of the empire? And it says, because, you know, sometimes that sort of thing is so close to the center of operations, it's the eye of the storm. So that's the last place they would look for Magenta. And so they meet up with Magenta, and then they hatch a plot using the rings of Tyche, which the Doctor has kept from his encounter with Riddle of the Rings, and Rings of Akaten. And it's Susan again being naive and said, "Oh, well, of course you could change his mind, grandfather. The Emperor's mind, because you've got the rings. What's this about rings? Everybody's asking." And they all start putting pressure on the Doctor to step more boldly into history and become part of events. And at this point, they divide, because the Doctor is he eventually gives in. Maybe it's for a quiet life, or maybe just is just shamed into doing it. I didn't kind of finish off the formulation of those interactions, because everything else developed. And I had notes in various places in different folders. But the idea was that the Doctor, Magenta, and Susan would go to see the Emperor. But the Emperor then was like, Nero or Caligula. He'd be like spoilt, almost like borderline mad, certainly dangerous, vain, and, talks down to everybody. So they were going to go as his pamper team, for his spa treatment. And the Doctor was going to be this head masseuse or something, or a masseuse that does head things. Susan was meant to be there as just like the assistant, and Magenta was going to be there as well, as like another assistant. And then they were going to do the cranial massage using the Rings of Tyche on the Emperor, he thinking it's just, his spa treatment. And then they make him suggestible to what Magenta is saying. Say, wouldn't it be nice if everybody in the Empire got along? And, wouldn't it be wonderful? Because a happy empire is a productive empire, and that means there'll be more gold in your coffers and things. And she appeals to the worst self-indulgence within the Emperor, but so that he will agree. And so, because he's quite a vain and shallow person, it's easy for them to get him to change his mind and say, well, yes, actually, maybe we should stop the war after all. And but the thing is, the problem is that the real power is in the hands of the regional governors. And so we hear about how Rowan, slightly earlier in the story, just a little bit of setup about how he's a very, he's like one of the major figures within the Senate, and probably the most vicious when it comes to prosecuting this war against the Magenta faction. And then they say, well, okay, it's all very well trying to change the Emperor's mind, but somebody could easily change it back again, because he is weak-minded, easily led. And as long as they give him what he wants, the Senate can do what they want. So they think we have to take out the biggest threat, and that is Governor Hal Rowan. So we end up with a situation whereby Taran, who's meant to be a young CIA agent on his first mission away from Gallifrey, who gets completely captivated and excited and overwhelmed by being out in the universe, he suddenly thinks it's perfectly fine to start interfering with time in a very irresponsible way. And the Doctor, that's why he's one of the voices persuading the Doctor, yes, you should help these people. You should change the Emperor's mind, because it will save countless lives. And the Doctor is like, but what if those lives were not meant to be lived? That might be part of established history. And then all these people exist that shouldn't, and that could affect the web of time. It could fracture time and so forth. But, everybody is saying, no, you've got to do this. And then in consistency of characterization, this version of Taran, this idealistic young man, says, well, I want to be involved. I want to go as well. So he uses the time ring, but on the spatial setting, to take Gresham to go to deal with Hal Rowan. And we meet Hal Rowan upbraiding the top brass of the military, and is just established as a terrible person, which we do anyway, of course, in the finished Magenta War as we have it now. And so he's established very quickly as a completely unlikable, unrelatable character. And so when he's shot in a gun battle with Taran, we think, oh well, that's fine. And then of course Taran and the Doctor and Susan, they part company, and decides to, well, what are you going to do? And he said, well, you could come with us if you like. And he says, no, I want to, I've got this time ring. I could go anywhere and do anything. And he's conscious that the Doctor is having misgivings about, should we really have done all this?
Yes.
I think it's forced me into doing something. It's not just against my conscience, but it's against the oath of a Time Lord to preserve the web of time. So they're on good terms, but he doesn't quite trust Taran. Now, as anybody who has listened to the full 7 parts of the Magenta War, it's a very, very different story arc for Tara Lassalon.
Oh, yeah. That was going to be my next question, actually.
Yeah.
The changes.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, as you were talking about this, I thought, well, that's good. That'll be something I definitely ask you about, which will be about what made you change so much about Tara Lassalon.
Well, as I was trying to put the 3-parter together, I thought, well, there was something about the story that just wasn't giving me any sort of buzz, so to speak. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I'm not sure. Is the Doctor really going to be so persuaded so early on? Will he be able to look at the issues of fixed and time in flux? Would Taran, this young whippersnapper, who's probably not much older than Susan and on his first assignment out of Gallifrey, would he listen to him? And I'm thinking, well, possibly not. So, and it's like the reason that Taran manages to persuade the Doctor, because he uses the time ring to say, look, the 3 of us, we Time Lords, our timelines are in flux, so we can act. And it's this which is the tipping point for the Doctor to say, well, if I can act, then just let me act as I wish. Leave me be. And we do retain that argument, excuse me, in the finished version.
Yes, that was something we were discussing about how, in the end, the First Doctor is still a witness. He is still an observer. He assists, but not in such a direct manner as you would see the Doctor in stories nowadays do, where he'd just run into a room and take charge. The First Doctor here is a reluctant assistant. He is more observing the consequences of interference.
Yeah. And he, I suppose, reluctantly is prepared to help, but then we completely undercut that expectation of the audience by saying, well, it doesn't need to happen, because we get a real surprise that we've had 2 different spies in the camp. We have the security chief at Jolliffe Manteen's private complex outside one of his leisure domes on Gorid. And it's funny because when I was writing that section where Gresham and Susan are trying to rush to safety through passageways, I could almost visualize it. I could imagine how it would be for, Carol Ann Ford and whoever would have been paying Gresham back then, finding their way out and then meeting the security chief and says, get in the vehicle. Yeah. And then they find that they're actually brought back. And just the sheer sense of terror and powerlessness on Susan's face, that you could always imagine it almost like as a cliffhanger of like just her forlorn face of thinking, oh no, we're going back. And so we've got that. And then we find out that there is another betrayal of sorts but it isn't the betrayal that we have in the security chief, who's, as he says, if you'd have come here a month ago, I was completely committed to the Magenta War and the faction and everything. But because my cousins have been protesting and are in prison, I'm thinking that if I plea bargain by handing you over, then maybe my cousins will be set free. So it's a more sympathetic betrayal, because it's not just done for money or power, it's done to save two people's lives. So two people's lives for two people's lives. So
a
you can
necessary,
understand,
a sort of a necessary evil or a necessary sacrifice. Yeah.
And then the second, which isn't quite a betrayal as such, is the automated or android for nutrition android Anna, and that she has been infected by or taken over by the Emperor's nano droids or nano tech, and so has been working for him and been recording things, and so he's up to speed. And as he says in one of his lines to Magenta, we're never more honest and true to ourselves than when we believe we are unobserved.
Yes.
And so it's that really is a key feature of the thing, that are people being true to themselves? And really, Taran wasn't, Gresham wasn't, but it was to protect lives. Taran because of selfish reasons. But obviously he wanted to be with Susan, and this element is a much later thing that's introduced, that I thought we could really make Taran three-dimensional by having this other element. So why would he come and try and get the Doctor? Because I thought, why didn't Gallifrey try and find the TARDIS? And why didn't they go after him? The fact that when the Fourth Doctor lands on Gallifrey, they're looking through the logs and they say malfeasance. So they said, "Oh right, okay, we'll set stasis because we're gonna need this guy." But the thing is, he's already been pardoned, and the dematerialization codes have been given back to him in the previous incarnation, the Third Doctor's era. So there's a slight, I wonder with the continuity with that. But leaving that aside, there's this idea that surely at some point Gallifrey would have sent at least one agent to say, bring them back. The hand of Omega is too important to be out there with two inexperienced Time Lords in a deregistered TARDIS. What on earth is going on? So I thought, well, we would start with that premise, and we do with this young Taran. But then as the story developed and more episodes were added, I thought actually we could really develop him from a different angle. So we have to give him the authority or the power to be able to commandeer a TARDIS. So he's actually the director of Gallifreyan Homeworld Security. So he's the equivalent of Narvin.
Okay, yeah.
We allude to Narvin, but Narvin's job, coordinator of the CIA, because he said, to one of the agents, I'm going to be away for a while, so you will need to be my deputy, and I'll square that with the coordinator. So he's referring to presumably Narvin. Then there's this thing of like, well, does the Doctor try and persuade the original version of Taran to just let him go and say, well, I've got a rickety old TARDIS, you've got a time ring. We could both go wherever we like. You could pretend you never found us. You could have a whole lease of life in this wonderful universe. And I never really settled on how the young Taran would take to things, but he's determined to rescue Susan, and then I think he realizes that you can intervene in history and it's quite exciting. And that's why we then get what we get at the end in the first version, which is, you know, the two missions, one to get the baddie emperor, one to get the baddie governor. And then it was like, no, we've got to make it much more subtle. We've got to try and preserve the Doctor and Susan as non-interventionist, apart from to preserve their own lives. And everything, there can be a maelstrom, a great storm of activity of people making difficult decisions around them, either for themselves or for other people, and how impactful that is. And they're in the midst of this, almost like Gorid becomes almost like a metaphor for the Doctor and for Susan. They just end up in the eye of the storm where, okay, Susan is threatened with torture and we really think she's going to be tortured, but it doesn't happen. She's rescued. They're always on the brink of total disaster, total catastrophe. And we always seem to pull back from that. Something seems to save them, preserve them, protect them from that. The worst excesses of being out in the cosmos. And I thought what we need to do, therefore, is, I love character-driven stories. So we've got the war in the background, and we'll just see the interactions of people, and we'll develop characters. So Taran was the obvious one. I thought, well, maybe he could be someone who was at the academy with Susan, and so that they would have a connection that way. And so therefore they're able to persuade him to just let them go because he said, oh, well, we were friends at the academy. And then it morphed into something else, whereby this is a man of 997 years of age who has given his whole life and all his incarnations bar one to the service of the Celestial Intervention Agency. But for all that time, he's been pining and yearning to be with Susan. He's had an obsession from the very beginning. And so once we'd established that, and before it was all finished, I think we had a conversation, and I said, we'd had thoughts about doing some glimpses of Gallifrey. And I said, and we've talked about that, obviously, when we looked at that in a podcast, whenever that was, goodness knows, a long time ago when we were much younger. And we were saying, what was it like for the Doctor to just be doing normal stuff on Gallifrey before flight from Gallifrey? And so we had that 2-part story where they have the encounter with the pig bears. They meet another Time Lord who's slightly different to the ones in the Citadel. He lives in Arcadia. This is Kavinda Lunda. He's the senior ranger in the Great Forest. So that we're giving a different flavour of Gallifrey. It's not two-dimensional. They're not all up in the Citadel, or they're not all down in the plains as the Shobogans. There are other people who are trying to make their way in Gallifreyan society in a negotiated way. And so, oh, excuse me. So we have this whole thing of looking at Taran as maybe someone who could be seeded in that story to establish a connection with Susan. And so I said, can we wait for the Magenta War? And I think I was still trying to finish things like Prelude. Well, I was finishing Prelude, and possibly the other 2 episodes in Series 2 of Wanderers. So there was a lot of spinning plates going around, and so therefore that created scheduling issues for you and recording issues as well. But it was great to be able to just sort of in a very subtle way establish Taran at the academy with Susan, and you know how he tries to be a little bit of a hero because she's getting bullied by Java Nixon and Ilan Torellis, who are from the House of Rassilon, who are really nasty pieces of work. And as I think, if I didn't say it in the podcast where we discussed A Holiday to Remember, we certainly talked about it ourselves, that when we see their behaviour, and it's crucial that they are from the House of Rassilon and they look down on the House of Lungbarrow, to which Susan and the Doctor belong, that the view, especially of Elanterellus, is quite extreme about the difference between natural borns and loom borns. And you can see that attitude and that hatred and bigotry or whatever is the thing that, if you take it to its nth degree, is what leads the Time Lords to become the sort of people who are quite prepared to enter the Time War and be as bad as the Daleks. So that Cass says, Daleks or Time Lords, who can tell the difference anymore?
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of setup there, or a bit of homage to what happens later on. So, yeah, I mean, originally I'd got a certain episode whereby Taran and the Doctor would steal a spaceship and they would go to Kifun and they would rescue Susan. And then I thought, actually, it will increase perhaps the suspense if we show a much longer journey, and they actually end up out in space with the spaceship damaged and they have to be rescued. Could they be rescued? Well, obviously they do get rescued by Safari Jim, quite an interesting character. And it builds the tension. Are they going to get there in time to actually rescue Susan before torture is applied? They don't know that torture's in the frame at this stage, but we as the audience do. And so by giving time to a whole episode where the Doctor and Taran are interacting, they're a little bit abrasive, but they begin to start softening to each other. And especially when Taran says, I give you my oath as a fellow Prydonian, I will stop at nothing, or I will not let any obstacle get in the way of finding Susan. And the Doctor is just sort of, he says, such an oath is not given lightly. Thank you, my boy, thank you, or words to that effect. And that actually softens the Doctor a bit more towards him. So it makes the betrayal even more great that he's invoked that oath and said, well, yes, but I didn't say I was going to give her to you. I said I was going to rescue her, and I've done what I came to do. So there was this next scene with this great betrayal of Susan's been rescued from the cells along with Gresham, and then, of course, we have Taran saying, I love you, I want to be with you, and then escaping. And as we hear from the Doctor, he'll take her back to Gallifrey, the one place he knows I dare not go. He's been so clever, manipulating things from the beginning. I've been so foolish, so blind. And now I will never see Susan again. I'm not quoting directly, but it's more or less those sort of words. Yes. And you're thinking, oh my God, how on earth are we? And I'm sure some people must have been thinking, oh my goodness, is the Doctor now going to have to try and find the TARDIS? And is he going to have to go back to Gallifrey to rescue Susan? Because continuity says that she has to be with him, flying out and then eventually landing in Totter's Lane and everything else that leads up to, their time with Ian and Barbara and all the other companions, etc.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, it just leaves things very suspenseful, I suppose. And the more that one indulges in all those sorts of plot lines, suddenly find, actually, Connor, we haven't met Magenta Calhoun. Her name is given to the whole war. If we don't actually engage with her, we might as well have called it, I don't know, any other name. So, and then trying to seed in other characters, give more attention to Governor Hal Rowan, and then seeding him back into the trial scene so that we say that he's the ultimate baddie. So that we really, by the time that Hal Rowan appears in the final episode, we're thinking, right, we just need to be rid of this character. We need him. Something needs to happen, and it definitely does. As we know.
Indeed.
Sorry, I've been waffling and waffling and waffling, and you've just been very politely listening to me. Going on.
No problem, no problem. Oh, it's been interesting listening to your, like how the ideas developed. Oh, it's been very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting. Although, you had specific cast members in mind.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes.
Because obviously we've had, and they'll be played in this podcast prior to this segment, but we had some little audio snippets from Chelsea Lagan, who obviously plays Susan Foreman, and Jimmy Wolfe, who plays Gresham, and Connor J. Sumner, who plays Tara Lassalon. We've had them talk about their roles, which of course was sent to you in advance, so that it's because we used it as a bit of writers' feedback, didn't we?
Yes, which I very much valued, because I don't always know how the voice actors feel about the parts that they're playing and the lines they're delivering. So I think we discussed this, and I said, because the Magenta War is such a big thing, it would be really nice to know what the main characters thought of it, because they had to do so much work for it.
Yes.
And they really put heart and soul into it, every one of them, for which I'm very grateful. But yeah, there was something about, I can't remember what I'd heard Jimmy Wolfe doing at some point, and I thought, Gresham. And I said to you, do you think you could get Adele Jane Harris as Magenta? And he said, well, I can ask, and we'll see whether she's available and see what we can do. So that was great. Connor J. Sumner had already mentioned that I'd, through you, given feedback, I think, about his performance in Saved by the Bells. And he was playing Dick Whittington, just newly arrived in London from Gloucestershire. And there was just the energy he brought to the performance, but also, sometimes when I don't know about you, but when I'm writing, especially when I'm doing the First Doctor and Susan, I almost can imagine their voices, and that helps me to make sure I get the right sort of words. I don't always probably get it right every time, but I think that mostly you'd think, yeah, that sounds like a First Doctor sort of line. That sounds like a Susan Foreman line.
Yeah.
And there was something about Connor's voice that made me think, that's the perfect voice for Tara Lassalon. So, because whether it was the original version of Taran or what we now get as a much more sophisticated character with quite a few layers, I thought, that's him. He's a highborn Gallifreyan. He's working for the CIA. Either he's been doing it for centuries and has reached the top of his profession, or he has been doing it for a short time and is on his first assignment. That is Taran. So I'm delighted that he agreed to do it, and he seemed to enjoy it. He did say, I think, after he blitzed it, he went through the whole set of episodes in one go, and then needed to have a lie down afterwards. So, Connor, I'm sorry.
But yes, well, there's so many highs and lows with that story as well, especially for Taran.
Yeah.
He goes through essentially the pursuit of love, the rejection, and then the kind of redemption as a hero.
Yes.
It's so many highs and lows for the character. It's such a strong story. Meanwhile, we had I think Jimmy Wolfe recorded all his lines for Gresham in one go as well.
Oh wow, yeah.
And then Chelsea recorded hers three scripts at a time in the end.
Don't blame her.
Yeah, because episode 2 was the last. I remember when she was recording. I think she actually recorded it from Prelude onwards.
Oh, really?
Because she wanted it to, so it ended up as 2 or 3 a night. So she recorded Prelude and then episodes 1 and 2. After episode 2, she said, "I'm a bit exhausted after that courtyard to that courtroom scene.
Yeah.
Can I continue tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. We've technically got a year because I got people to record a year in advance because of how extensive the cast list is. I needed so much time to really make sure that I got people recording, and so this was recorded as some people recorded as far back as April or May last year. I think we actually. I can't remember if I don't know if you've mentioned this. We got the 12th incarnation played by Marty Onion as director.
Yes.
We recorded. He recorded Prelude and episode 5 back to back, and that was technically the first person to record for that, and that was actually November 2024.
Really? Oh, okay. No, because I think what we did was we had to sort of do it in such a way that we didn't want to give, no disrespect to Mark, but it was that whoever it would have been, we did feel, I think, the actor only needs to see those bits of the script in which they're in. So we didn't want it revealed to him that he was actually Tara Lassalon. And I think with Connor, we didn't want him to necessarily know that realize that he was a director until he was recording that particular episode where there is the retrospective. And then we realize, oh, wow, that's who it is.
Yeah.
That he actually sacrifices a life to actually almost become,
to literally start a new life.
In a sense, to turn back time. And as Susan says, but you haven't. You're 997 years old. You just look like you did at the academy.
Your experiences are still your own. They don't.
Yeah.
You can't go back to the way things were because you'd have to unlearn everything.
But I do think there's something that we seem to encounter subtly and not so subtly in Doctor Who, that quite a lot of the Time Lords they're not quite right in the head. You think of Councillor Heddin, obviously Rassilon himself, Omega, undoubtedly, the Rani, most of the members of the Decca, I suppose, and I suppose the Doctor to a certain degree, a madman with the box, and of course, let us not forget Barusa, who we've talked about before, and say, "Oh, Barusa, what's happened to you?" Now, whether it's because of the splitting of the symbiotic nuclei that leaves them slightly, their heads a bit, what was his name? Is it Campo Rinpoche? Says, when he's inducing the regeneration for the third into the fourth Doctor, he says, it will shake up brain cells a bit. And it does make you wonder whether, for Taran, by the time you get into old age from a timeline point of view, or at least you may not have lived for thousands of years, but if you've been through regenerations, you've traumatized the body, even though you are sort of born again. So maybe it does leave you with an inherent weakness mentally or somehow. So because as Malfaxian, who's an old school friend of Tara Lassalon, says to him, "You've actually done it. I thought you were joking." So this is like a schoolboy crush. This is, this is insane. What have you done to yourself?
Yeah.
And and it's like Taran, it has. He's sort of gone off the rails a bit. So you're completely right. I hadn't thought of it quite in those terms. It is a redemption story of some ways but it takes Susan to do it, because by establishing contact and say, see inside me, see how I'm looking at you, and realize, and he's got enough integrity to respect that. But it's funny, I felt that I had to preserve the seriousness of all that stuff with the dynamics of the three of them, the Doctor, Susan and Taran, by not having too much in the way of comedic asides. There's something about him saying to him, a bit like a grumpy granddad to a grandson, like when he was eating that chicken with the meal, and Mantine says, "Oh, so you only have sort of nutrition pills and gels and things?" He said, "Oh yes, really, it's very efficient and it doesn't harm any animals." He said, "Oh, well, if you don't want any more chicken," he said, "Oh no, I have it." And the doctor said, "Well, you needn't eat all of it." And they have these sort of little tiffs and things.
I did notice there was a sort of a grandfather-grandson dynamic between the two of them, which I thought was quite sweet, really.
Well, I think partly as when they're lost in space and waiting to be rescued, and they're just chatting away, unless it's when they've actually escaped. See, I've written the thing and I can't even remember it. But at some point when they're on their journey to Cthulhu,
yes,
there is that little thing where the Doctor and Taran are sort of looking at relative ages, and he said, "Oh, I was at the academy with Susan," which again was trying to seed something which people might not think, "Oh, he knew Susan." And when he says, "You've spent an hour doing a wash and brush up because you said I want to look my best when I see Susan," why would you care? Unless you want to look your best because you want to make a good impression, because you have romantic leanings in that direction. And when he says, "Oh, we were at the academy and Susan saw me race my last race," and he's like, "Oh, she never mentioned it." And he says, "Well, lots of people from my class were there. It was a bit of a bit of a do, So he sort of hints at things without actually giving things away, so that people might think, now if people go back and listen again, they'll think, aha, that sort of heuristic moment where you think, that's what's going on there. But there's a point where he's actually saying, well, so I'm the young man, am I? Because he's 997 and the Doctor is a couple of 100 years old or whatever he is. I think he's meant to be less than 300 years old when he's the Hartnell incarnation. There seems to be conflicting views about that. But anyway, he said, well, yes and no. He said, because this body is only a few days old, whereas your body is wearing a bit thin. Oh, I'm not sure I like your personal remarks. Thank you very much. So, there is a sense in which that's why I think the other incarnations respect the first Doctor, even though, say, the fifth Doctor is hundreds of years older than him. The first Doctor can call him my boy and say, you did quite well, and he accepts it because he respects the fact that this person has grown older. There's the age that you've grown within the incarnation. I think that's one of the key things. So it's not the relative age of the Doctor by the time he's got to an incarnation, but it's how long you've been alive in that incarnation, because it's almost a refresh. You're learning to be the Doctor again, but you've got all those dusty old voices in your head from the past, which is disorientating because you're trying to build a new life. And that's why I think the Doctors, like the second and the third, fight against each other, because it's like, well, I could have lived longer and not become you. And, well, I'm embarrassed by you because was I really like you? What I'm embarrassed by myself. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the resentment of like, well, I'm the doctor. I don't want you to be the doctor. Again, it's the part of the psychological thing of a lack of integration, psychic integration, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
that got very deep.
It got very, very deep.
Pseudo-scientific deep, anyway.
I think that answers all of my questions. It's been a very, very nice conversation detailing your thought process into the characters and the Magenta War as a whole. It's been very interesting, Michael. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I just hope that we don't get tons of comments, but I do know that you can see from the views that there's interest. There's interest there, and I'm just pleased that the comments that we do get.
There have been some more comments. Yeah. I mean, yes, the comments have been positive, but we have had some more comments on some of the earlier parts of the Magenta War in recent days.
Oh, have we?
Yeah, so some people mentioned what was it, Mama Muumu's?
Madam Muumu's.
Madam Muumu's, sorry.
That's where he likes to go for his posh dinners. This is Hal Rowan, of course.
Yeah, someone went, I'd like to see what that's like. Someone commented, and then another person commented on. I think they're catching up. So there's a new comment on part 2, and then there was a new comment on part 4 recently. So because this is always the issue, we release stuff so frequently that some people will purposefully wait for the whole thing to be out. I know about one
just like a massive viewing
binge
thing.
Yeah. I know a few people who will acknowledge that it's out and be going, "Oh, this looks fun," but they won't actually watch it until it's all out.
Yeah, I'm quite. I'm conscious that I hope you didn't think I'm sort of being proprietorial, but when I see comments, I like to respond, and I notice that you are much more strategic in your commenting. You won't, like I will, if I see a positive comment, I jump to get on quickly and then say thank you very much, and it's like all that sort of thing, and it's very kind of you and whatever else. Whereas I think sometimes if people ask
sometimes people ask questions.
If you tend to explain certain things.
It's more because we do the section of the overall podcast where we read out the comments. That's my opportunity to that's my real opportunity to be able to communicate with people. And then we've obviously shifted it slightly so that we give people more time to comment, because it was always we'd record the podcast, read the comments and everything like that, and then a day or two before the podcast goes out, somebody comments.
Yeah, it's a shame because some of them are really really good. Who is Gladiator 652004? Do we know who that is?
No, but they are a frequent commenter.
They are. I don't know whether you saw the comment 6 days ago on
part 3.
Episode 3 or part 3. Susan and Tara Lassalon sitting in a tree, and then there's like music bars and a little smiley thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's a rhyme, Susan and, well, it actually, they ought to have just said Susan and Taryn sitting in a tree, KISSING. That's the rhyme from childhood. Well, anyway, so I thought that was quite amusing. But I noticed there's one on episode 2 or part 2 from TT Productions audio dramas, no less.
Yes.
Which I'd overlooked, saying Chelsea's performance in this audio drama is underrated. She's so talented.
Yeah.
I don't want to what's the word? disagree with what Abby is saying, but I don't think. Well, how is it underrated? Because she hits the ball out the park, to use the baseball figure from the US, every time. Maybe part of the problem is she doesn't. Susan doesn't get as much airtime as she could, which is why episode 2 was written first, because I just knew that she had to be away from the First Doctor in order to shine. I don't know, to you know, be. It's like when children start learning to walk. At a certain point, you have to sort of you stand behind them and maybe have your hands under their armpits, and then you have to gently take the hands away to see whether they can stagger forward, and maybe to pay maybe the other parent who's they're facing and totter towards them and see that the other set of arms is there. But there's that interstitial space between the one and the other where they are completely alone, and they could be free falling for all they know, because this is so alien an experience for them. And so for Susan to be not only away from Gallifrey, she's got the Doctor as her sort of security blanket. Take him out of the equation. Gresham's good, but it's not the same as the Doctor. You know, and so it's she appreciates the support he can give, but the connection between Susan and the Doctor is too great to be replicated in a very short-term relationship. And I think the thing is, I think Abby has highlighted a very important point, that I would like to see more people commenting in the First Doctor era episodes about Chelsea's performance, and actually commenting on it and engaging with it, because the emotional range that she brings every time, and the subtlety sometimes, because it's not all like the trial scene, because I think you pointed out on another occasion where we had the very tender moment in London's Burning, where the Doctor rushes into the School of Tropical Medicine to go and bamboozle them about epidemiology to get some information, and he leaves Susan and Silas Wennick outside, and they just have this very short chat about the Doctor. And it's just, I think you said, just the way she performed the tenderness in just a few lines was superb.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, in that scene, when it seems to be a running theme I've noticed, which is a lot of other males telling Susan, hey, you don't have to listen to your grandfather. You can go out and be your own person and all this sort of thing. But Susan wrestling almost with the loyalty.
Yes.
Because she does want to be her own person, and she didn't have 100% choice in this new life. But ultimately, she sticks by her family.
Yeah.
She might not have necessarily agreed with what's happened, but it's happened. And all she's got now is her grandfather. So she won't, under any circumstances, have that be what's the word? Compromised.
Well, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that from a certain point of view, if Susan, there's a Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue. If Susan of the House of Longbarrow was actually male, would this be? I think it would be a completely different dynamic.
Yes.
Completely different, because of the gender prejudices of the 1960s, and he would have been, I don't know, more trying to. There'd be this tension of trying to be like Ian as the hero or outshine Ian for heroics, and being a bit reckless, and you know, maybe pulling at the leash of parental authority with the Doctor and getting into real clashes across the generations, but also being probably very clever with being able to do a lot of the sciencey stuff. I think if it was a boy rather than a girl, you might have seen him being a bit more like a child prodigy, working the TARDIS and things. And I think that was, you know, that there was so much that they could have done with Susan if they'd have just stuck to the brief of. They could have gone two ways. They obviously went the way that they did, but if they'd have just kept going on, this is an unearthly child, telling each set of writers, remember, this is an alien girl, but she has to be the, you know, and just left Barbara and Ian to be the lens through which you see the story. But then you could say, well, who wants to have the teachers? We don't like teachers, do we, when we're kids, seemingly. So you don't want them to be the lens. You want Susan, who seems to be just a little bit older than your own age. And so I understand why they did it, but then, you know, maybe it should have been done in a different way, you know. But I think that, you know, I do think that that's why, as I come back to a point I made, it seems hours ago now, I don't know when it was, but anyway, that we can explore emotional range for Susan so that we really say we're seeing some of the inner depths externalized. How does she feel about this experience? Not just screaming and shouting, but just feeling the depths of feeling. And then, of course, problem solving. And she does do a little bit of that. And sometimes she'll come out with things in a very logical way of like, well, if you do this, that, and the other, then that will be fine. I think we've got more scope for that a little bit later on in some of the as yet unpublished stories, which we're slowly working upon. And I think one hardly dare say this. I suppose we're open to people saying, well, have you ever considered, you know, going down this avenue or that avenue? Because, you know, we've come up with all these stories and we're not doing too bad because there are quite a lot of others in the pipeline at various stages of completion. Well, in terms of at least writing, none of these others have been recorded yet. But, you know, it's very easy to get trapped in one's own bubble, and the danger will be to simply replicate plot patterns again. And people say, well, hang about, didn't you do a story that I'm getting a vibe of X or Y, and you've already done that? So, you know, why are you doing it again? But you're just different character names and slightly different outcome. So, you know, it's tricky to try and be fresh, and you know, all we can hope for is that the characters alongside Susan and the Doctor and their interactions and the general plot resolution is something that people think, yeah, that was worth listening to.
No, I agree. Indeed. Well, once again, thank you so much for this, Michael. Thank you for being free to have a little sit down and a little chat. We've, as always, we always have a lot to talk about, don't we?
Oh, well, you're very kind to me to let me waffle on.
No, I do find it very interesting. I find it very interesting, even if I don't really necessarily speak much. I just like sitting down and listening to your process.
Thank you.
No,
Appreciate it.
Well, I suppose we shall go back to the main podcast. Thank you again, Michael, and farewell.
Farewell, my boy. Farewell. Ha 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 ha.
And welcome back to the podcast, and I am still here with the Blue Kazoo.
Hello!
And we're now going to listen to what is coming up next on Overton Audios. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go!
Overton Audios presents A lot has happened, but we need to find Benjamin and stop him from doing this to anyone else again. And of course, we need to get home.
Now the women in question died just up here. There are burn marks on the brickwork here.
Similar to a level 7 laser rifle.
Stay where you are.
What's going on out there? The streets are deserted.
I am here for your betterment.
Galstone left destruction in his wake. Do you truly intend to stop him?
Well, we know that time itself rejects him. Every leap he makes tears another piece of him away.
It's the time shifts. They're bleeding into us. You can't take it.
Who are you?
All in good time, Miss Falstone. The tracks of time push onwards.
You strip lives to make your tracks.
We were displaced in time before.
Who are you?
I am the next step, and you, Madame Vastra, are already too late.
The Paternoster Gang, Future Outcomes 3, coming the 7th of March 2026 at 12 p.m. And that was the trailer for Paternoster Gang Future Outcomes 3.
Ooh.
We had this volume come out a lot sooner. Last time we had a year and 2 months, I believe, so 14 months gap between the first one and the second one. But we're accelerating the story now as it all comes together. It all pieces together, and of course, it features the return of your character, Blue Kazoo.
Who?
You.
Who did I play?
You.
Yeah, I've been told this. Who did I play?
Yeah, and remember who you're playing. Go ahead and talk about it.
I did something.
Remember you played Florence Falstone.
Okay. Oh no, that's bad. Oh, yes. I play Florence. She's a lovely here. She's a lovely lady. I record too much. My brain doesn't cope well with multiple characters.
Oh no. But yeah, so you play this character called Florence Falstone, the wife of Benjamin Falstone, who was the main villain.
Mm-hmm.
He went and investigated time travel whilst his beloved wife, Florence, was ill. She was very ill. He wanted to cure her, but there is no cure for what she's got. So he develops time travel so that he may go into the future effectively and find the cure to what it is, so he can bring it back for his beloved. It's a very pure, positive endeavor. But he has sadly messed up. He has sadly meddled in something that he doesn't quite understand the ramifications of. He's ended up traveling between different time zones, but without having the correct protections when time traveling. So as a result, he has corrupted himself and anybody who uses or is affected by the same time travel technology. And that includes the Pat Gang, as they were displaced in time. They were sent to 2021 by Benjamin Falstone. And Benjamin has continued to go on and be a right nuisance. Becoming a time agent, hunting down Cade Redhill. And now he will be coming back, but we'll be exploring more about him rather than him being just nameless time-traveling villain. We will learn through Florence Falstone and, of course, the return of the beloved John Cooper as played by Aidan O'Connor. We will learn more about them both. and the backstory. Obviously, John Cooper, who was Benjamin Falstone's best friend, who did the time travel experiment with him, only to then find themselves abandoned in 1803. He is now a much older man when they meet him in the 1840s. Of course, you've also got to think as well, they're now no longer in the 2020s. They are now in the 1840s. They are too early, which is just as dangerous now for not just the Pat Gang, but also Henry, who was brought back in time as well.
Henry.
Oh no, there was so much at stake.
Oh.
And it'll all be very fun. It'll be very fun to explore the story. It was a thrill to write. It was lovely to kind of put everything together. This is even worse because that's in the setting, because there's no unit, there's no Torchwood, there's nothing left that they can lean on. They've not even got their Paternoster Row. Before Paternoster Row was a residential block, and it was all cafes and gentlemen's clubs. So it'll be a very fun thing, and it's been very nice to kind of write something more in tune with what the Paternoster Gang has been. Which is, which has been, a period drama, really, a period detective drama, and we've not been able to do that yet because they've been out of their time. We've been looking at kind of the amusement of these Victorian characters in the 21st century, but now we get to look at them sort of in their time, and that's been very exciting.
I love playing a character that isn't my own accent. We love it. We love being a hoity-toity English person. Oh, yes. I don't sound like that, by the way. Just letting everybody know. I do not sound like an old lady. I'm a young lady. You're quiet.
A youthful Blue Kazoo.
That's it. But just sick.
But illness.
The illness takes hold.
Oh. But nonetheless, I think that is where we should say farewell now. Once again, thank you to the Patreons, Daniel Wilde, Anya Coyle, Delta Effects, and of course, Chelsea Lagan.
You're welcome.
And of course, welcome to the podcast, Blue Kazoo.
Thank you very much. I can't wait for this lovely wee adventure that we're going to go on together, and I hope everyone else is as excited as I am, and hopefully they like me, because if not, well, you're stuck with me, so there you are.
And sadness.
Sadness.
Lots and lots of sadness. But lots of people enjoy your work and very much like you. Which is good.
Very good. I hope so.
There is no reason for hatred.
No, definitely not.
No, indeed. Well, nonetheless, anyway, thank you all for listening, and we shall both see you in the next one. Farewell!
Bye!